Let me hear you. Good and loud. A1, A2, A3. Take me out to the water. Take me out to the town.
Buy me something innocent, crack and check. Root for the it's a shame. It's 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out.
This program was recorded on Monday, April 18th, in the year of our Lord 2016. The opinions expressed by the participants in the following program do not necessarily represent that of this station or its management.
Or anybody else.
From the John DeVita recording studio, located in an undisclosed and clandestine location on the great northwest side of our fair city of Chicago, we once again are pleased to be presenting yet another edition of our monthly roundtable panel discussion show, Meet the Chicago Historians. Now, here's the guy who started it all, John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Rich, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, April the 18th, the year of our Lord, 2016. Today the panel will be talking about America's summertime sport, baseball, both National League and American League, and maybe some of the junior leagues. And now, sit back and enjoy. To start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Richard Lang.
And now, here's our panel moderator, Jack Red Ryan. Jack?
Hooray! Whoopee! Hey, everybody. There's my impersonation of the crack of the bat. Come on. Anyway, yeah, 18th of April. Does that ring a bell with anybody? 18th of April in 75?
Yeah, it was the last day to get your taxes in.
Yeah. Well, we're past that already.
Except if there's 2 states, I guess a couple states they can't.
Today is legal.
Yeah.
It's actually
Is
the
it?
19th.
Today.
They had a battle of
I also-
Lexington and Concord. If you were in those states and they're celebrating it, you got one more day.
But it's actually, it's the 19th. The battles were fought on the 19th.
Just
I don't know. That's
just
what they
this
say in the
year.
newspaper, so I don't know.
I also heard today is the National First Responders Day. I didn't know that, but
I
so
heard
for all
about that too. Yeah.
so for all the police officers, firefighters, EMTs that are listening to the show, and those that are here on the panel, thank you for your service. God bless you.
That's for sure.
Not that I know of. I just found out today that I know police. Well, May is Police Month, but Police Week is the 13th of May in Washington D.C.
Right.
I always go.
You'll be down there.
Yeah, I
Oh,
go.
do you?
Yeah, I go every year.
We actually met down there one year. My girls lived in D.C. for a while. Michelle was going to school there and all that. Hey, Tom.
It's getting big. It started out. I think this is maybe the 20 something year.
28th year.
Yeah, and the first couple years there weren't many, but now they've got the last few years they've had over 40,000. I think they're expecting 50,000. So
Yeah.
it's getting big.
Well, you have good speakers, don't you? Like the president, Eric Holder, and
Yeah, Eric. Well,
you
the
said
president.
good.
The president
Yeah.
didn't
I
make
thought you
it.
said good speakers.
The president didn't make it once, but when Eric Holder was our attorney general, he gave a speech and he said that if someone kills a police officer, they'll prosecute him. I said, "Well, thank you very much, Mr. Attorney General. That's just wonderful.
encouraging.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Trump said that anybody that kills a policeman should have automatic life in jail. I don't know how people think about that. I totally agree. But that was a politician talking.
No, not really. He's not a politician.
Well,
What
to
I,
get
what
as
I
much
tell,
money as he got, yeah, he's a politician.
what I tell people, especially a uniformed police officer, if someone doesn't have respect for him, what do you think he's going to do to you? I mean, if someone has no respect whatsoever and is going to commit an act of violence against a uniformed police officer, what do you think he's going to do to you on the street? These are the people that we want to put behind bars.
Plus the fact that the police officer is armed and he's willing to take a shot. So what's he gonna? How is he going to react to an unarmed civilian? How much fear is he going to have of
How do you know the guy's unarmed?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know that? And that's the big problem.
The police officer is armed.
No, he
I'm
said,
saying.
Yeah.
No, he was saying the police
And
officers
he's
are
restraining
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
to
This
to find out his
weekend,
timing.
35 shot, and I think 3 dead
What, the city total?
in the city total.
Oh.
Yeah.
And,
And every weekend it's going to get
Bill,
worse and worse.
And the
now.
only reason that there aren't more dying is I have to give credit to the fire department, the
Medics.
paramedics, because
Yeah.
of the treatment that they get.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot more dead. If
Yes.
it was in the old days with the old Cadillac ambulances, you triple that number.
Yeah.
Well, that was a big improvement on safety, wasn't it, when they went to the paramedics on the street?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they saved this city for crying
Just
out
the fact
loud.
of having them at the scene of a fire saves a lot of firefighters.
Yep.
Now, Bill, you said, of
the
course,
biggest problem you got with paramedics to make sure that they got shot at when they're doing
Right.
their
Well, that's the
job.
latest. That's
when
the
I
latest
was
thing.
when I was in office, the state police were changing their vest, their bulletproof vest, because they were, quote, out of date, and they had something like, I don't know, 1,800 of them, and because of my dealings with them, I got a call, Bill, you can have them all. I contacted the fire commissioner. He agreed with me. He said, but you know what? We'd better put it through the legal people in City Hall. And guess what? The answer was no. I wanted to give not to the firemen, well, if they wanted it, fine, but to the paramedics, because they were getting stabbed and shot at, and that's still happening.
Mhm.
And they're going out there buying their own, and that's a big buck.
I had
what are they?
expensive.
I had an
500?
had an opportunity yesterday to speak to some people who had been touring in the Middle East very recently, and they were in Egypt, in Cairo. And they struck up an acquaintance with some people, and these people traveled, and so the people from Illinois invited them to come and visit them in Chicago. And the Egyptian says, oh, no, we hear too much. It's too dangerous in Chicago. Too many shootings.
Yeah.
So they're in the Middle East,
Yeah.
and they've heard that Chicago is a much too dangerous place to visit.
Well, any
Yeah.
place you went across the pond. Oh, Capone?
Yeah.
Capone. I mean,
Right.
we've always had this.
Yeah.
This
Definitely.
wasn't Capone. They had heard about now.
Oh, yeah,
They
now,
had heard
yeah.
about now.
This is worse than Capone's time.
My dad was stationed, you're right, my dad was stationed in Southampton, England in World War II, and when kid says to him, hey, Yank, where you from? He goes, Chicago. He goes, yeah. This is 1944, so it was all fresh.
I originate from Minnesota, and I hear that when I go home. But when they come here, they want one of us with them, because you know the streets. Think of that.
You
I
know
mean,
what?
at
Just
least-
my
isn't that
night,
amazing?
I've
Yeah.
got-
At least in those days,
Me.
it was mostly bootleggers shooting up other
Yeah,
bootleggers.
exactly. Now it's anybody. Anybody.
Well,
My
cousins
the problem comes in now. The kids have guns, but they don't know how to aim.
No.
They just don't know
That's
how to pull a
what-
trigger.
that's where the anybody comes in.
Yes, we should have a federal program to improve their marksmanship. Maybe this, put that on one of
But
the,
I mean, it's true. It's usually some innocent bystander that gets killed.
It is
and
true.
they're aiming at some gang
Yeah.
member, but they hit some guy
What was
10
it?
feet away from
A
him.
couple
You
of
are,
days
yeah.
ago, some kid,
Yeah.
1 year old,
Yeah.
Well,
got it
the
in
other-
the head. Come on, this is.
The other
But
thing
my
is-
my cousins live up in Minneapolis.
Okay. Well, they're
And they
having their
said that
problems.
they,
Yeah.
she said they have big problems up there. So it's not just,
Oh,
here.
no. It's, and nobody wants to talk about most things because
Chicago's got the
that
a
is
negative.
that. That's right. Right. Yeah.
I know my wife was from Western Kentucky, and the best man of our wedding is sitting right here, Tom. Among the other things we did together, that was one of them. He even went with us on the honeymoon, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He was an instructor.
Tom
Anyway,
is helpful.
Right. Well, my best man speech was John and I have done, our paths have intertwined throughout we were in grammar school together, we were in high school together, we played on the same teams
Scouts.
together, and Boy
Altar boys.
Scouts together, college, we went on the police department, he went on the police department first, I went on the police department. I said, but if you think I'm getting married, because you're getting married, you're crazy. But I eventually did get married. So.
Sound like
any-
the Bobbsey twins.
Anyway, her brother-in-law wouldn't let Deanna's sister come to visit. She couldn't even be in the wedding because of all the hoodlums in Chicago. This is in 1970. And eventually, in a few years, they visited here. He loved it, all the inconveniences. If you don't like this jewel, there's one a few miles away, that sort of thing. His son needed a new baseball mitt, and they were going back that Sunday. I said, "Oh, come on, hop in." We rode down to Maury Mage's Sports.
Yeah.
He found the one he was looking for. Might have paid a little extra, but he got it.
Yeah.
Wanted
We
certain,
have everything.
Yeah, certainly
We
like
have
Coor.
everything.
Do you want it? We went to Zimmerman's on was just on Lake Street, but no, on was it on Lake? Randolph? Yeah, Randolph.
But those were still in the days.
Why'd you know about the liquor store so quick, Darkin?
I just know a lot about
I used to work there.
Did you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Max the
I
Hat?
sure did. Yeah.
Max the Hat?
Yeah.
You're talking about the days of the first Mayor Daley, and Chicago was a very different city in the 70s from
Yeah,
from
and
the
very commanding,
from
too.
the Chicago
Yeah,
that we know
you did
today.
it once, and then
Yeah.
you'd get the message. Yeah. But yeah, it's too bad.
Anyway, before we go any further or farther? No, further. Let's walk a little farther before we discuss this any further. That's what I remember this. Let's do our Mouseketeer roll call. Oh, which way? Are we going counterclockwise or clockwise or what? Which way? Let's go clockwise. Bill Kugelman?
All right, Bill Kugelman. I'm retired from the Chicago Fire Department after spending a quick 46 years, and I was president of Local 2, the Firefighters Union, and am now involved with the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago.
Located at 5218 Southwestern.
And in fact, we have an open house here the 23rd, which is this coming Saturday, from 10 to 2. And we would like you to bring a camera. The kids love it. The big kids, the adult kids.
Little ones, too.
The mothers and fathers love it. Oh, we would welcome you. To my left,
Ken Little. I was a fire alarm operator for 35 years. And I also taught Chicago history at Wright College for 21 years. And longtime friend of Chief Kugelman. We used to ride the buggy together once in a while. So I should probably
It was a horse and buggy.
Yeah.
Well, you also, you
I used
guys,
to bring the sugar for them.
weren't you guys also involved with the history show before and with Eddie Schwartz, too?
Bill wasn't, but
No.
I was. Yeah, I was on Eddie Schwartz History Show for 18 years, actually.
I just I would call in once in a while, and I knew Eddie, and
He knew everybody.
it was it was a shame with Eddie.
Yeah.
Visited him out in the what was it, Ballard home
Ballard
out at
home.
Rehome, and he was just a shame to a great guy. Good
Yeah.
guy.
Remember, he had, turned out to be a heart attack, but the paramedics saved him, so he went and trained to be a paramedic himself?
And yes.
Oh, no,
He
John
he didn't have a heart
No,
attack.
that's what he was
though.
indigestion.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
what, yeah.
yeah.
I'm telling the story.
Well,
so.
for him, that could have been a major disease.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't well.
No, he weighed probably 400
Yeah,
pounds
but, I mean,
or
the
so.
point
But
was he wasn't healthy.
Chicago,
Yeah.
His liver, everything. Was
he
going.
had ringside seats regularly at the Marigold.
yeah.
Marigold, wrestling.
Okay.
Wrestling.
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 Yeah.
That's
From the
gone
Marigold.
now,
And on my left,
I am not on anyone's left.
Yes.
I am to the left. I am to the left of no.
oh, you picked up on that.
My name is John Escacholco. I held public office in Cicero for many years. I was on the old WJJG radio station. I enjoyed listening to Chicago Eddie Schwartz. I remember my mom always enjoyed listening to him after midnight. And the first time my dad ever took me to the old Comiskey Park, it was the first game of a doubleheader with the New York Yankees. And as I'm coming up the walkway, I heard the crack of a bat I saw the ball sailing out into center fielder, and Mickey Mantle was rounding the bases. The first inning, he had hit a home run, and that was my first image: is Mantle rounding the bases and the ball sailing into the stands.
Wow.
A great memory.
Couldn't play in that.
Yeah.
No,
You missed your chance.
can't top that.
He hit a homer. Crack of the bat.
Crack of the bat.
Yeah, we got the sound
Our
effects.
sound
and
effects
everything.
man.
Yeah, right.
Hi, I'm your announcer, Rich Lang, a longtime instructor of modern American and European history, and more recently, a student of Ken Little's at Wright College, where he got me familiar and enthused about local history, Chicago history. And as bringing in the baseball theme, even though I've been a lifelong North Sider since my father was born and raised on the South Side, I've been to many more games at the old Comiskey Park than I ever been to Wrigley Field.
Whereabouts was that? Your father was.
The Roseland neighborhood,
Roseland,
far
okay.
south, on the way toward Hegwish.
Oh, yeah.
My commercial.
So I feel like this year, maybe the city series was some of us have been waiting for.
Wouldn't it be
It could
nice?
happen, you never
Could
know.
happen. Yeah.
Wouldn't bet on it, though.
We just, excuse me, Rich, we just got done talking about this, and I'm looking at my brains here called an Apple phone.
Who are you texting there, Bill?
And it says that a Maryland firefighter who was shot on call is now improving.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
that goes along with what we were talking about.
Good news.
That was a bizarre story. Knocking on the door and there's gunshots coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
The guy thought somebody was breaking in.
That's how it
Makes no
happens.
sense. Yeah.
There's no reason to these things anyway. No rhyme
No.
or
A
reason.
lot of
No.
guilt maybe on this side of the door.
Yeah.
Well, they have what they call domestic quarrels, and somebody knocks on the door and they start shooting.
The worst
Really?
to respond to.
I didn't know that.
That's what you
Next
call
up.
a domestic.
Identify yourself.
Oh, name's Al Opitz, a newly minted great-grandfather.
Good for you.
And,
Congratulations.
You mean you were just an ordinary grandfather before,
Yeah.
and now you're a
Your great grandfather.
grandfather?
always been great in the first place.
I'm Jeanette Frontier. I was with WJJG Radio, which is an excellent toy. Any child who has a radio really could learn a lot. I've done a lot of things in my life, but that was a very interesting part of doing something different.
Yeah.
And here I am today with all of my great
Yeah.
buddies at my table.
And you always come well prepared with history and,
I don't know how well prepared, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank
I,
you.
I have to ask you, there's no sexual harassment here, is there? That you-
Nothing.
Tom McKenna, retired Chicago Police, 34-year veteran, lifelong friend of our moderator, Jack Ryan, one of the few people that actually admit that.
That's right.
Short, sticking with the baseball theme, my mother told me, Tommy, if you ever get married, marry a Cub fan, because anyone that can back a loser like that for all those years won't have any problem with you.
Dun, boom.
So moving right along.
Rim shot.
He knocked that one out of the park.
Yeah,
Oh
right.
my God.
And I'm Jack Ryan. And that's the end of the round.
It's the end of
Okay. Policeman, 34 years. Went about the same thing as Tom. They went to school. I think you finished, though, didn't you? I never liked school, so I was too smart for them. But anyway, did a little, dabbled in a few other things. There was worked for union organizer with Joe Mescal and the AFL-CIO, which we failed to get our representation from them. And I also, I did the newsletter there. So I did a little publishing. I was the editor, writer, publisher, photographer, etc., and chairman of the board. And then I also did a little pro wrestling. And we had a new police commander in the Chicago lawn when I worked there from 86 to 90. John Corliss had been the commander, and this James Hollinsworth came in. And the guy who drove him around I had worked with in Prairie Avenue, so he knew I'd done this wrestling. So the commander comes over and says, I'm getting some copies now at the machine. Hi, Ryan. You wrestled, huh? Where'd you wrestle? What was your name? What did you weigh? And then he says, by the way, is that stuff phony or what? And I said to him, let me put it this way, Commander. It's the second phoniest occupation I've ever been involved with. What does he say? What's the first? right over his, TWA, right over his head. That's a true story, by the way. So, okay, we're going to do a little, our usual history made fresh, known as current events. Here's one to start off with now. We know there's a total. Remember Mark Twain said something like to the order of, suppose I was a politician, suppose I was an idiot. Wait a minute, I think I'm repeating myself now. But anyway, this past week, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, Senator Cullerton introduced an idea, not yet a bill, that inasmuch as all of these economy cars and these are cutting down on the amount of gas sale, we have to make up for it in the taxes. So they want to charge you by how many miles you drive, put a meter in your car, or pay a flat fee of $450 a year. Now, is this, come on, guys, is this for, guys and ladies, what possesses someone like that, Janet?
You know what? I like to meet the guy or the guys or the gals or whoever it is. They must have be in a closed room somewhere, and that's all they do is think about ways to get taxes, more taxes.
They did have the same idea in Utah a couple of years ago because of the fact that the gas prices or the gas taxes were going down. And
is that the whole state of Utah?
Yeah, apparently.
Well, this is Chicago. Yeah.
Well, he withdrew that, but I heard he's going to replace it with a air intake tax because it's outrageous that the citizens of this state breathe Illinois air for free.
I wanted to say Ronald Reagan, I believe it was Reagan who once said the only reason government doesn't tax the air we breathe is they haven't yet figured out how to meter it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When they do, there'll be a tax on air.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the mentality of some in government. They think that they're entitled to whatever percentage of your wealth and your income that they choose, that it's all theirs. And the question is how much they're going to allow you to keep.
And they explain it by saying there is no other alternative.
Oh, of course not.
An example of that is, what if you walked into your boss's office and you said, boss, I was making out paying my bills, and I noticed I'm short a lot of money, so there's only one alternative. You're going to have to give me a raise.
Yeah, right.
That's the only alternative. Well, how long do you think you would last with that company? It's ridiculous. There is an alternative.
That's right now what's going on with McDonald's and the rest of those places. So, they need more money, but they don't want to do more work or do any work.
Well, plus they're under the assumption that to increase your income, you lay down in the middle of the street and block traffic. That's how you increase your income.
What I love is
because there's no other way to do it.
Right.
When government mandates what the minimum wage is. Okay, so the government is going to decide what the minimum wage is for employees. It has nothing to do with whether the work being done is worth the minimum wage. Why don't they guarantee the employer a minimum profit? Why don't they pass a law guaranteeing the employer a 5% profit? And just that's all you have to do is pass a law.
That is an excellent point. And you're the first one that
I've never heard that before. Thank you.
That is good,
Comrade.
As a matter of fact, that is so good that I'm going to use it and claim that I came up with it.
That's all right. Anything that works.
Comrade John, that was good. That's the only.
It's a good idea. They'll never do it.
Appendix B would be.
That's all you have to do is pass a law.
Appendix B, if you don't meet the 5%, the government will send you money. To make up the 5%.
We will send them money.
Exactly.
We will send them.
But you work.
Don't forget about the cars. Now, the fact is, the cars government mandates you reduce the gas consumption.
Right.
So now all of a sudden they say, duh, I don't make any money off the gas production.
The law of unintended consequences.
It's kind of like we're coming out against cigarettes, but we're taxing cigarettes for the health program. So
I know.
Well, I understand the Elgin O'Hare that has just made that extension, and it isn't a big extension, but I know I used it all the time, and it just connected to every road that I would need, and that was, in my words, free. Well, now, as of July, when you get on it, it will be by the miles that you use. That's the way that toll will be figured out. And so, I mean, you cannot win. I don't care if you go a block or 2 blocks.
In a way, these toll roads are a lot of them are made up like that.
Oh, definitely.
When you get off.
But this was, the one that still was
loose. We're looking for House Bill in General Assembly now in Springfield, which is must be like a ghost town. But for 30 years ago, it was brought up, and it's brought up now again to name the I-290 and 355 interchange to my son.
Oh.
And it'll be the Trooper John Kugelman Expressway or whatever it is. And it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going. All it takes is nothing.
Yeah.
The sign is
Yes.
all made.
Yes.
All they got to do is put
Yeah.
the sign up.
In
Who could have
California,
objected?
almost all of their highways are
gosh.
named after California Highway
Yeah.
Patrol that have been
Yeah.
killed in line of
Now,
Well, they
uh,
just did one to Jimmy Stauber, who died. Where was it? Over near Woodfield or wherever it was there.
Now, your son John,
Yeah.
state trooper, was killed in the job, run over by a guy on purpose, correct?
Murdered at this intersection.
Yeah. Oh, now, how long ago was this?
How old?
How long ago was it, though?
Oh, 30 years?
Yeah. And the guy's walking around today, right?
The guy that murdered him got out of jail in 2002. He now lives in Franklin Park and works in Itasca. And he was the first. We passed a law in Illinois. I don't know if you guys know it. It's every murderer in the state of Illinois, as in other states, must register like a sex offender. But these guys got to pay, big deal, $10 a year.
Yeah.
Mr. Malind was at work when 4 troopers went in and grabbed him out of work and took him over to the Franklin Park Police. He was number 1 to sign up for this. I thought that was
Yeah.
great.
That was nice.
And they took him. He works in Itasca. They took him to Franklin Park, and when the trooper called me, he said, "I said, well, are you just back from taking him back?" "What do you mean taking him back to work?"
He's got to get back to something.
Yeah, he can walk back.
Yeah.
But
Did, now, you said that he said in open court, "I offed me a pig."
yes.
So there's no.
Oh no, there's no
No
doubt.
doubt, yeah.
No, there's no doubt about
Well,
it.
what was
at
he
all.
was he convicted of first-degree murder, or was it?
No, it wasn't first degree
Knocked down
murder.
to
I
some
thought that going
plea
out to
bargain?
DuPage County would he'd get a better, a bigger
Better
bigger
chance.
chance. But you know what? Now I wish it would have been in Cook County, and I could have gone down there myself, and it would have been, hopefully life. And of course, I thought maybe he'd get AIDS while he was in the joint, but that didn't happen either.
Yeah, it is incredible. Yeah.
So,
You know, I watch Law
Great
and
state of Illinois.
go ahead.
Law
Well,
and-
your boss, Mark Buslick, who Kenny knows, his son just died.
yeah.
His son was 27, no, 26, 27 years old. He was a month away from getting his law degree in California, and then they were going to get married right after he got the degree and started in. He was an adopted son,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah.
and
And an only son, too.
and the only son, the only child, and he OD'd. And we just
OD?
buried him here, I don't know, 2 weeks
2
ago.
weeks ago. So,
Quite a ceremony. By
Yeah.
the way, police really showed up there and that.
yeah,
Mark
what a,
is such a good guy, but
what a shame.
yeah, Mark came up to me and he said, "Well, Bill," he says, "a big hug," and
We got something in common.
he said, "We got something in common," and I said, "Yeah, I know, Mark." I wouldn't say no.
No.
It is a different situation, but
Yeah,
what are you
what a
going to do?
shame.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Were you going to say something before, Ken, or you have another?
Well, I was going to say I watch Law and Order quite a bit on TV, and one of the things that I relish watching is when they get a warrant for someone's arrest, and
Yeah.
they walk in and the guy is giving a class or
Yeah.
having a
A patient or
session
a board
yeah.
meeting or something?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, you can't
Mr.
come in here.
So-and-so, yeah, you can. Yeah, I'll see you outside. And now you're under, and away they go. And he says, "Class dismissed." And
Yeah.
out they go.
Yeah.
So.
All the other ones, all this is old, like Perry Mason. I confess.
Right in open court, yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
stand
The-
him.
the,
I couldn't
uh,
stand him. He deserved to die.
We have, we've got Chicago Fire, we've got Chicago Med, and we got Chicago Police. and one of the guys on the Chicago police came in one day into the museum when I was there, and they just happened to be going by, and I talked to him for a while, and I said, I says, I tell you what, bud, you guys got a lot of nerve. He says, what are you talking about? I says, you're doing things on that show that all of our people wish they could do again.
Talking about Perry Mason.
Ta-da.
How would you like to be that? I think his name was character was Lieutenant Tragg.
Yeah.
How would you like to every single person that you ever arrested got found not guilty?
Break time.
Oh, excuse me, everyone. Now, for our brief first intermission. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
Everyone wear your briefs.
I learned so much about baseball in this segment. It was unbelievable.
Are you looking for a place to have some printing done? Well, I have the right place for you to go, and that is the printing store in Oak Park, Illinois. Call or see Phil Berry at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. Phil will sit down with you and help you plan whatever you need printed. Now, his products are brochures, booklets, business cards, catalogs, envelopes, letterheads, flyers, invitations, newsletters, notepads, menus, mailers, manuals, labels, posters, postcards, price lists, NCR forms, sell sheets, table tents, pocket folders, and presentation forms. And his services include 1 to 4 color offset printing, digital copying, high-speed copying, graphic designs, typesetting, laminating, foil stamping, die cutting, and imprinting. And he also has a complete bindery service, which includes booklets, cutting, scoring, folding, numbering, padding, and drilling. So once again, for all your printing needs, see or call Phil Berry at the printing store at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. And once again, they are located at Madison Street and Clarence Avenue, just east of Oak Park Avenue. And it's at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, or call 708-383-3638 and ask to speak to
Meet the Chicago Historians. Jack? Who's confessing? No way. Here.
Thank you.
That's enough.
That's a gift.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3.
Congratulations.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Happy birthday, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
This is a in Cicero. This is an honorary day.
Big day. Yeah, I
It's a
know.
national holiday. It's just
Soundwide- soundwide holiday.
They'll reopen the track, I bet.
I don't know
It's a
about that,
national holiday.
but
That's
I think
all right. It's
I'm
a
a
gift.
child of the 1940s. I was born in 1949. So I'm very
That's
proud of that.
nice.
I'm a child of the 1940s.
Good sometime.
We grew up in the 50s.
I grew up in the
I would have too, but I never grew up, so.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
I still haven't grown up.
I didn't say I said never.
And on my
You don't have
birthday,
to grow up.
historical figures, one of Rome's greatest and most brilliant emperors, Marcus Aurelius, one of France's least impressive monarchs, Napoleon III, the great Napoleon's nephew, and Adolf Hitler
What, same day?
were born on April the 20th.
20th.
Is
Oh.
that right? Wow, what a mix.
Yeah.
You know, you
I rather think of Marcus Aurelius than, than Adolf.
John, I got a book the other day. A bunch of us meet on Wednesday morning. Most of them are coppers, and Bill brought in a book, Germany, and it was from the 1936 Olympics.
Oh,
It was their book. I mean, talk about this thing. And it was, the book is all about how Germany was getting into the dumps, you know, and how Hitler brought it out, and he did a great job. And this was a tribute to him.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And then he got carried
He
away
had a
with
plan,
it.
The same-
and then the
yeah.
Olympics
The
just
same was
knocked
said
him
ab-
out when
Yeah.
we all won.
Well,
The same was
this
said
was
about
nothing
Mussolini.
about the
No, I know
Olympics,
that.
actually,
I mean,
you
I'm
know.
just saying, then
But
awful.
it was a book that they had for the Olympic Games in '36.
I got photographs of Olympics at home,
Of who?
of Hitler at the Olympics at
The
home.
Olympics
Oh.
in
That's a
36,
keepsake.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
I was
the,
only a year old, so I didn't know.
You know, the line was always said about Mussolini that he made the trains run on time. And it was true because the trains in Italy were chronically late and undependable before Mussolini. And Mussolini, but the problem is, I mean, Germany was badly governed after the First World War. The republic that came in was political divisions and rivalry. So any competent leader, any competent government
Had to go up.
could have improved Germany without the Gestapo and the concentration camps and the anti-Semitism and busting head. I mean, so yeah, it is true that people went to work, but they went to work because they were already beginning to prepare for war. And at the end of his regime, Germany is flat. I mean,
Yeah.
Germany is reduced to
crushed.
rubble.
Every
So,
building is destroyed.
you know, so I mean, I know this.
It didn't progress.
No.
Defenders will say, "Well, yeah, you put people." Well, yeah, you know, for a few years they had a measure of prosperity, but what was the cost? You have to measure up the cost.
But they also had a lot of like useless jobs that they describe them as like leaf raking jobs, whereas it was almost as if our job was to throw all the bricks over this side of the fence
they
and we're going
could
to throw them
pick 'em
back
up.
this way.
Yeah.
Make work better.
Like Chicago is now in this time and age. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Hitler and Napoleon did one thing in common, though, was the fact is they unified the language. Before that, they used to have every
The
dialects.
principality or
Yeah.
had their own
sections.
dialogue, and he unified that. Napoleon supposedly unified the French language, which was probably the worst of the dialects that they had around.
Evidently, he didn't like Yiddish.
Yeah.
I always
Yiddish is a dialect of German that they use in
it
Europe.
is.
Use, yeah.
Yeah.
Jewish Yiddish is Polish and German.
It's a German dialect that the Jews of Europe use because all different countries.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's not the same in every country. That's the problem with it.
well, it's supposed to be.
It's not.
supposed to be.
I talked to somebody who traveled around a little bit. And she knew Yiddish, and she said she went to one country and tried to speak Yiddish to the Jews there, and they didn't understand a word she said, but they spoke their own.
my favorite joke about
I'll have to
Hitler-
ask Moshe.
There's the story of the little peasant who goes to his dentist during the war. He's a peasant. He had no education. And he goes to the dentist, and the dentist works on his teeth. And then when he comes to pay his bill, he goes into the dentist's library. And the dentist is an educated man who loves history. He's got a globe. And this peasant had never seen a globe. He didn't know what it was. He says, "What is this round ball here, doctor?" He says, "Oh, that's the world. That's what our world looks like." "Oh." He said, "What are all these colors?" He said, "Well, those are the countries." "Oh, what is this big gray country here?" He said, "Well, that's the Soviet Union. That's Russia." "Oh, that big? Yeah, that's the Soviet Union." He said, "What's all this red I see here and here and here and here and here?" He said, "Oh, that's the British Empire." He said, "See, that's England and Canada and Australia. Those are all the countries ruled by England." "Oh, what is this big blue country over here? Divided up into all these little..." He said, "Oh, that's the United States of America." "Oh." He says, "What's this little black country here that I can just about cover with my thumb?" He says, "Oh, that's our great German Reich." The peasant says, "That's Germany?" "Yeah." and that's England, and he looks at the doctor, and he kind of looks, he says, has anyone told the Fuhrer about this?
Put things in perspective.
It makes me think of a story, since you mentioned it. The Russian Olympic Committee is around. They're giving track and field tryouts in different areas. So in one small hamlet down in the Ukraine or somewhere, wherever it was, and this is before they're separated. And he says, so they're trying out for the hammer throw. So several contestants come up, and one guy, in an errant throw, flies across the field, across the fence to the field, the farm field where the farmhand was working. We just picked up and he flung it back. And my God, that guy really threw it. Go get him. We'll try him out. So they had him do it 3 or 4 times. And they said, this is great. You've never done this before? Like, well, no, not for competition. He says, but that was great. Those are really great throws. He says, that's nothing. You got to see how far I can throw the sickle.
Well, present day in North Korea, the citizens of North Korea, they are taught, the children are taught in school that the, what do they call him, the supreme ruler?
Oh, yeah, the deer leader.
The deer leader, that he's like 7 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
And he's the strongest man in the world.
Yeah.
He's the smartest man in the world. And they believe that.
And he looks.
No one could ever.
They must hide him real well.
He's infallible on what he does.
My father told me that in World War II they captured Japanese prisoners when they were fighting in the Philippines. And my dad was there when they were interrogating these Japanese. They had guys that could speak Japanese. And the American was just shaking his head. My dad says, what is it? He said, we asked them where they think they are, and they think they're in Texas.
Wow.
He says they think that this is the United States. Their officers told them that they had invaded the United States and that they were fighting in the United States.
Wow.
And they believed. I mean, you couldn't talk them out of it. They thought, no, this is Texas. Our officers.
The propaganda machines in different countries are great in some areas. Germany was great about propaganda. Soviet Union was unbelievable.
Well, so are we.
Yeah.
Look at all the Washington.
What I can't understand about in this country, usually the propaganda machine in the country promotes the country.
Yeah.
I mean, here it downgrades the country.
Yeah.
You know,
got a unique approach.
What's up with that, as they say?
Tom, you were talking about Korea and the same bunch that we meet on Wednesday, last Wednesday. Danny Murphy came in and he had a hat that was given to him by one of his kids who was in Dublin. And it was, it had Ireland on it. And it was
That's
green
in Texas,
and
isn't
so
it?
forth.
Yeah.
And Danny took it off and he gave it to me. I said, "Oh, let me see." I'm looking at it, a real nice hat, and I turned it inside out, and here it's
Japan.
made in Korea.
Oh.
And I said something about, and I won't use the language. I said, for crying out loud, this thing was made in Korea. What would I? Well, sitting at the table next to us was the Inspector General of South Korea. His name was Lee.
Joe Flair.
What else? At least it wasn't Patel, but it was Lee, and he heard us, and he came over and he said, "Oh, let me see that." It showed it to him, and that real nice guy. He's embarrassed by what what we were said, and it turned out real nice. I've got his card at home. He's the Consul General of South Korea to Chicago.
Right, consul. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very nice man. But talk about somebody that didn't want to say any more. It was me.
Yeah, he made you feel me.
Yeah.
Bill,
yeah.
obviously you're not familiar with the great Irish community in South Korea.
Yeah.
The hat manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
Dan didn't know either. He says, "It's what?" He says, "The hell is it, South Korea?" And that's when this guy heard us.
I wonder what percentage of American flags are made overseas.
Well, we've got.
Although we still have that WGN, no relation to the
station.
Flag company
Yeah.
here.
They're on
Was that
South-
39th and Ashland or something?
No, they're
Oh, that
on
was South
Labs.
Chicago.
South Chicago,
Yeah, it's a
just
great-
south of the fire.
I'm thinking of advertising flag
They
company.
have every imaginable flag.
Yeah.
Historical flags, state flags, every country in the world.
They've been working like, I don't know if they're working 24 hours, but
Here's a flag trivia question. The only flag of the in the member of the United Nations that isn't rectangular in shape.
I think it's Nepal.
You got
It's
it.
Nepal.
John got it.
It's like a
Yeah,
zigzag.
it's like
Is that
three.
right?
It's like three pennants.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When you mentioned Texas, kid talk, as they say, we were told that the Japanese and that Asian group learned a lot of their English and about the America through Western
Oh, movies, yeah.
Movies.
And that, that could have been an ironic twist, but they were told by personnel, right, that was Texas.
Oh yeah. They were told by their officers that
Right.
they had invaded the United States
Right.
to give them
Yeah.
the
They
boost
gave
that
them-
they were
yeah.
fighting on
Yeah.
American soil.
Oh, sure,
This is
give them
American
some
territory.
hope. Yeah.
All the English signs they saw.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and because the Philippines had belonged to us, and it probably made it more plausible.
Sure.
You'd find there were probably American flags that
Sure.
they found. So
English signs.
it was
Sure.
more plausible that it was actually part of the United
Yeah,
States.
you know how flag started originally, didn't you?
No, how?
That was originally with the Crusades and everything else. They had to have a leader.
Mobility.
In order to identify a leader, they had a pennant,
A banner?
banner
Yeah.
of sorts, and that's
Yeah.
first into flags. Because at that time, the country didn't have a flag.
Yeah.
They just had
Very few
crests and stuff like that.
We didn't really have countries. You had all these little principalities and
Yeah.
kingdoms.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
1,000 of those things.
Some were
were
probably no bigger than a county, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The Romans had standards. You see the movies; they carry these they're like flagpoles with an eagle on it.
Right.
And sometimes they would have banners hanging from that standard. So, I mean,
That was victory banners.
Yeah.
But no, there were those that represented the emperor and the military units. So sometimes they try to trace it back to the Roman.
Is that where they got
Eagles.
the rank of staff sergeant?
Yeah, I think so.
Staffs, it
yeah.
could be. It could be.
Yeah.
But by the way, just to digress, I was looking, Al, when you were talking. Right now, with the problems that terrorism in Belgium, Belgium is actually two countries. One half speaks French and the other half,
There's
is
more of that.
The Walloons.
Flemings and the
Walloons.
Walloons.
and the
Yeah, could be three
Walloons,
countries.
and they can't get together,
Yeah. I think there's 4 languages there.
Well,
It's a
there's at
19th
least-
century
there's-
country, relatively
Yeah,
recent.
there's at least two, that are recognized. In Switzerland, I guess, is what?
Three.
How many? Three.
German, Italian,
Italian.
and French.
French.
There's a
yeah.
fourth. There's a little language called Romansh, I
Yeah.
believe.
Oh, yeah.
There's a very
Yeah.
tiny population that speaks a fourth unique Swiss language.
Yeah.
Was that Catalan too? There's a Romance
Cat-
language almost
Catalan,
dead.
the Catalan
There was
in
also
Spain.
one called Dalmatian from the islands that were in the Adriatic,
the
were
old Austrian
spoken.
Empire,
It's not part of
Dalmatian.
Yugoslavia. Well, there's no. Sorry, I take that back. There's no more Yugoslavia, is there?
No.
Belgium is actually, they're divided into three. There's the north where they speak Fleming, which is a
Flemish?
variation on Dutch.
Yeah.
The Walloons, who speak French. And Brussels and the territory around Brussels is considered like
Arabic.
it's a third area that's sort of in between the two. It's like neutral territory, so that the capital doesn't belong to either one. The capital was almost like Washington D.C., not belonging to a state. So they've made Brussels a separate territory that doesn't.
No, nothing can be like Washington.
What do you
Well,
mean when
yeah,
you
the
say
other-
Say
there's,
a
the
single
other-
word and divide $100.
there's
The other
no
countries like
Yugoslavia?
that,
What do you
Slovis,
mean? The way it's
Holland.
broken up? Or
They got more than one language there.
I mean, before it was
What's that?
run
And
by
you got
Tito.
France, which doesn't
Yugoslavia.
have any language.
What's that?
Then
Oh,
you
yeah.
have France, which doesn't
Yugoslavia?
have any language.
Yeah.
Serbia, Croatia. What else is there? What are my countries?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thought you meant it was extinct.
No, well, it is in a sense. It broke it up.
Slovenia. Yeah.
It was created after the First World War. Yugoslavia
it
was
was created
created.
all
well,
the
through
Kingdom
Tito.
of,
Kingdom of
Kingdom
the
of
South
Serbs,
Slavs.
Croats, and Slovenes.
first name it was the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes.
Slovenes, yeah.
Yeah.
Then they concocted the name Yugoslavia for it.
So that sounded
I
better when you
just-
went.
South Slav.
Just like-
the
I thought it
South
became
Slavs.
extinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Well, that was easier to name a car Yugo than that long stuff like that.
Just like Czechoslovakia, it's a
Yes.
whole bunch of,
See?
Bohemia.
Every
Not anymore.
Moldavia,
It was Bohemia.
and Slovakia.
Countries.
Czechs and Slovak.
Slovakia,
Yeah.
Bohemia.
And Moravia.
And so
No, Bohemia is part of the
Moravia,
Czech
yeah.
Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bohemia.
But
would be
that
proud,
did
which is
not
part of
exist
Czech.
prior to
That
World
was
War.
formerly a Germanic
World War One is part of
area.
Austria-Hungary, Austro-Hungarian
Really?
Empire.
Yeah.
Germanic.
Bohemia and Moravia make up the
Sudetenland.
Czech Republic.
But
Yeah.
they ended up speaking a Polish dialect of sorts.
Yeah.
Their
Well, this
father-
must be the history you teach, right, Rich? I mean, as far as all the...
Someday I want to meet a Moravian. There
Oh,
must be a
yeah.
Moravian culture somewhere.
They have
I'm
their
sure.
organizations.
I
I've
wish
seen,
they
there,
do.
there are Moravian societies.
Is there really,
Yeah, there
John?
are Moravian
With
societies.
the
Moravian sister, they would be
big
there.
Yeah, in the western
earthquake
suburbs, yeah.
yesterday of Ecuador.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
you know, which is really
Yeah.
some kind of
Oh.
country. They went up. They interviewed some owners of stores here. There's a section that has about 20,000 Ecuadorians. You know, and you don't always hear
Yeah.
that distinction, if
Yeah.
you know what I
That's,
mean.
Yeah.
that's my parish over there,
all right.
Mercy.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
but they
Their-
had that tragic.
Their
you
consul
know.
general claims there's 50,000 in the
Here?
Chicago area.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then that
Yeah.
might be so,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I don't think I've
on
ever been
Troy
there.
and
They're-
Montrose.
Yes,
at
that was
Mercy.
the area.
And
Operating
when I
under
go
the-
over there, I mean, I can't understand half of what they're saying.
Yeah,
you
but-
know.
But
We
I mean,
never
I
could
think they get
understand
mixed
half of
in
what
with
you were saying.
Latino and, you know, whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
But,
Central
Ecuador
America,
means-
South America.
right.
Ecuador means equator in Spanish,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Right on the equator.
And you know, these are societies that are operating under the radar, so to speak. And
Yeah.
you know, you go all of a sudden you go along Montrose or Lawrence or
Or
Devon,
Devon,
and it's
oh my
India.
goodness.
Everything is Indian or
Yeah,
it's
we
Korean,
really have,
Indian?
you know.
Indian.
What tribe?
From New Delhi, I forget what. Yeah. Old Delhi.
But also Native Indians
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
over on Wilson Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember that guy that we had
one-
here?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I can't
Yeah.
do his
on the
name.
show.
Yeah.
We have to have him back one day. It's been a couple of years now.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
One of my favorite countries is Luxembourg, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg.
Luxembourg.
It's always listed in the books as 999 square miles.
Miles.
And I often wondered why the French and Germans couldn't have chipped in and given them an
Given
extra
them another
square mile to make it an
mile,
even,
yeah,
make it
right.
an even thousand.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
and it would make so much.
Although that's distinguishing, isn't it? I mean, when
Maybe
you
it's
really
more
think of
interesting
it,
being
yeah.
900.
That was supposedly that movie, The Mouse That Roared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the-
Kind of based on a
Peter
little
Sellers.
country.
Yeah,
like
right.
that, yeah.
Luxembourg.
Mount Fenwick or Grand Fenwick?
Grand Fenwick.
When you say movies, and it chimes in with the later on today, the Jackie Robinson's story. Did anyone get to see it?
Yeah.
I saw most of it. Isn't that amazing?
It was an
It opened
education.
your eyes, didn't it?
sure was, and
Well-
it was well
Yeah.
played, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
I watched
Yeah.
it in the two parts one night. To me, it was a lot of leftover stuff from his thing on baseball because he awful
Yeah,
lot of
that's true.
interviews
That-
and.
Well, he hero
Right.
worships Jackie
Yeah, well,
Robinson.
yeah.
Yeah.
He hero worships.
Obviously,
But I think with good reason, though, really, John.
Well, you know, my problem with this is this. I mean, I'm a Babe Ruth admirer, and I feel Babe Ruth was the greatest ball player of all time. And there's no day for Babe Ruth. I mean, there's no day when they
Yeah, I
all
get
wear,
it.
you know. And I mean,
Yeah.
he saved, among other things, he
And it's-
saved the game of baseball.
and everyone remembers.
And he has a
all of
great
that.
story. I mean, there's a lot of great things about Ruth. I mean, he didn't come from a privileged background either. I mean, he was an orphan.
Yeah.
And you know, but all of the emphasis now is, I guess, there's a Jackie Robinson Day where everybody wears a patch and a number and everything. And I there should be some room to recognize what Babe Ruth did.
There's no doubt of his account, no doubt that he was a very intelligent. I often wonder if all this had internalized all this abuse he took that first year, if that helped to shorten the guy's life. You know. However, then when they overdo things, it seems like that's a matter of maybe white guilt or something like that.
That's what I'm
would you
saying.
say?
That
Yeah,
because Jackie Robinson was a great player. He
Yeah.
was not the greatest player.
No.
Or anywhere
No,
near
but
the
yeah.
greatest.
He was a
player.
great all the way around.
Yeah.
But we could understand every phase of his life and the struggle of, you know, how long could we take?
Which was unique because
Right.
he was the first one.
Right, and
you know,
Branch
that's the-
Rickey said to him, "You're not hired unless you can take
Take it.
Do you remember that? Because
Yeah.
this is what's going to.
And to me, Branch Rickey was really a crook.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was just
Branch
gonna
Rickey
say,
is not
he
the hero
reminded-
that he's
No,
on. He's not
no.
the
He looked
shining
like he
knight
was
in
saving
white
him, but he
armor.
was
Well,
using him. He was
wanted-
using
he
him.
was
He saw the
using
cash
him.
register.
Well, the movie from a couple of years ago, 42, about Robinson, the character played by Harrison Ford, he was Branch Rickey in it. He even says, "Well, I got some other reasons for this because you can get some good ball players." And so you can, a little bit opportunistic.
I just thought it was a good one.
John, in what sense did Babe Ruth
better than
save
all the
baseball,
trash,
other
huh?
than the Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built?
The famous 1919 Black Sox scandal, the White Sox who threw the World Series. You remember, this is 100 years ago when people were much more straight-laced. This is before all the scandals of the 20th century. Today, going back to what they did seem small potatoes. But in those days, the idea that ball players would throw the World Series was horrifying. I mean, this was the national pastime. People loved baseball. It was the only sport. If in 1919, if you put whatever football there was, whatever basketball there was, whatever hockey, you could put them all together, and it wasn't a fraction of what baseball was at that time.
You got dressed up to go to a game.
Of course,
yes, they had a reverence.
They wore a hat.
No doubt.
There was a question whether the fans would continue to support the game. I mean, if they felt it's all rigged, it's all crooked,
why go out
and
there?
all of a sudden, Ruth explodes with the home runs and his personality.
He
just
makes it.
He turned it around. What we think of baseball in the 20s and 30s is Babe
It
is
was
90% Babe
was,
Ruth.
yeah.
He saved the game.
They are
And-
roots.
Yeah.
They said nobody looked like him, nobody could do the things he did, nobody acted like him.
Right.
Well,
And
the funny story was they're going on now. Everybody says they, with the narcotics and everything else, a lot of the ball players were taking
Steroids
Drugs and
and
stuff.
Babe Ruth, they say, this enhanced was a beer.
Drugs he took were beer. And he was, in addition to being the greatest home run hitter, he was the greatest left-handed pitcher in the American
Well, that's
League.
it. That was even
This is
another.
incredible.
Which is
I mean,
often overlooked, you're right.
whoever you want to mention, Mantle, DiMaggio, Gehrig, Mays, Aaron, none of them ever pitched. None of them ever pitched in their lives. The idea that this guy set a record of 29 and 2/3 scoreless innings in
Right.
World Series pitching.
Well, even after he was
Incredible.
made into strictly an outfield, he would pitch a few games every year then even.
Right,
so.
right.
Well, the funny parts about this is they go and say, well, he beat Babe Ruth's record, but not the same period of time.
No, when Roger Maris,
I don't remember that.
everybody knows it was 162 games. I mean, they added those additional games. They added 8 more games to the season.
Yeah.
Don't forget Hank Aaron in there
Who knows
too.
how many Ruth
for-
would have hit if he got to play in 8 more
Right,
games.
John,
right.
Speaking about all these Yankees, am I to assume that you have something in common with Hillary Clinton, who was secretly a Yankee fan?
First of all, my dad was a White Sox fan. My grandfather was a White Sox fan. My uncle, who lived next door to us, was a Cub fan.
Oh.
My godfather, also my uncle, was a Yankee fan. And when we would go over and visit
Yeah,
my
they had to
uncle, he
be
lived on the
alive.
south side of Chicago. He didn't like the Cubs or the Sox. He would have the radio on listening to Mel Allen. This is Mel Allen with the New York. I remember that voice, Mel Allen doing. He could pick up I think it was WOR New York.
Yeah, I don't
and on
know.
Sunday afternoon, he'd be listening to the New York
Yeah.
Yankees. And he was the one that told me about Ruth and Gehrig and
The
DiMaggio
real
and
background.
Tony Lazzari and Bobby Musil and so yeah, I always grew up with an admiration of the Yankees.
Yeah, me too. When you were talking in 49, that was the first year Stengel managed the
Yankees.
Yankees. They come down to the season, and the Boston Red Sox are leading the American League by 1 game, and they got 2 games to play with the Yankees, who are in second place. Yanks win the first game, now they're tied. Yanks win the second game, they win the pennant by 1 game.
Yeah.
I thought, I like this team, Then he went on to win 5 pennants and 5 consecutive
Right.
World Series.
I thought when I was a kid that there was a law that the World Series had to be played in New York.
Yeah, that was
That's
the
what
Dodgers
Stengel
and the
said.
Yankees.
Yeah.
Well,
Dodgers, Yankee, Giants.
when you think of this time of year, you think of flowers and trees blooming and that. But I can recall you walked into the house a Sunday. Sunday had a reverence and a grace to
Sure.
it, and everybody dressed up. You know about that. And you'd hear ball one. You know that hum
Yeah.
started,
A
and
cadence
everybody
for summer.
was staring at the
Yeah.
radio. It was just
Yeah.
that. But I had a neighbor. You were talking about how they dress. you would pin them down to saying, "Are you going to a wedding? I mean, you're all dressed up."
Yeah.
No, I'm going to the ballpark.
Straw hat,
There you go.
coat and tie.
And
Women
long
dressed up
story
very much,
short,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
somebody'd say, "Well, why don't you put it like a T-shirt on or whatever
Yeah.
they call that?"
Oh, no.
Sport
Oh,
wear.
never did.
You never.
No.
I'm going to the ballpark.
Look-
We never do that.
And the great
And
thing,
I can remember that.
another great thing about baseball, and it was true, you could go to the ballpark and you'd have the bank president sitting next to
Next
the
to you.
janitor, you know,
Yeah,
because,
right,
because
yeah.
everybody
distinction.
loved baseball. There was no
Yeah.
class.
Yes.
Everybody
All
loved
seats
baseball.
are relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But he'd be shined
And a
up
lot of
in
us
the
remember
best of
growing up with
shoes,
the,
and he's
Yeah.
going to the ballpark.
with the
Yeah.
go-go White
That was
Sox
so
of the
cute.
50s.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
invariably a
what a-
Sunday afternoon doubleheader between the Sox and the Yankees. You
Yeah.
couldn't
Oh, yeah.
turn my dad away from the TV screen.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
I never
yes.
saw a doubleheader live, but anyway. Can we got a minute, John? Can we have a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, before we go to break, makes me think of a story here.
Uh-oh.
Guy comes into the theatrical agent. He's got a dog. He says, "What'd the dog do here?" He says, "He answers questions." He says, "What?" Answer questions. He says, "Yeah, come here, Spot. Sit down." Okay, what do you call the top of a house, Spot? He goes, "Roof, roof." He says, "Okay, Spot. And what is the outside of a tree?" "Bark, bark." And if something's not smooth, what is he goes, "Rough, rough." And Spot, who was known as the Sultan of SWAT, he goes, "Ruth, Ruth." The agent goes, "Get him out of here." The dog's up and says, "Was it DiMaggio?"
Yeah, what a great story that is.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Look at that, Don. Oh,
You've
Break
been
time.
listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and we thank you for it. We'll be right back.
Well, friends, now that the warm weather has arrived, it's time to plant your flower and vegetable garden. It's not too late to start planting your flowers and vegetable gardens, and I have just the right place for you to go. Get your flowers and vegetable plants. You can go to Pesky's Flower Gift Shop, Garden Center, and Greenhouse, which is located at 170 South River Road in Des Plaines, Illinois. Pesky's has a very large selection of flowers, vegetable plants, and much, much more. Whatever you need for your flowers or vegetable garden, you can find it at Pesky's. And once again, they are located at 170 South River Road. They are just north of Route 14 or Minor Street, and south of Gulf Road, which is Route 58, on the west side of River Road. And be sure to stop in and visit their flower and gift shop. Again, Pesky's Flower Gift Shop and Garden Center, located at 170 South River Road in Des Plaines, Illinois. River Road is Route 45, and they are on the north of Route 14 or Minor Street, and south of Gulf Road or Route 58. You can call Pesky's at area code 847-299-1300 for more information. Again, that phone number is 847-299-1300, or they're located at 170 South River Road in Des Plaines, Illinois.
Now, back to our show.
maybe I'll put that.
Oh, come on, enjoy the music for a while.
Do 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 do.
Okay, if I may, folks, I want to read a little something out of the Southwest News Herald. Guy wrote this in the op-ed page of the Southwest News Herald. Does it get any greater journalism than
No,
that?
no.
If journalism is indeed great.
How
Okay.
could we keep up?
The headline is root for both teams.
Yeah.
Root for both teams.
Good and boom.
There we go. As a matter of good manners, we've always been told that it's for civility's sake, never get into a discussion about either religion or politics. These two subjects are so very close to our hearts as to render the logical and unemotional exchange of ideas and points of view very difficult. And to make matters even worse, in Chicagoland, we have an additional caveat of baseball and who you root for. Not only do we pull for our guys, be they the Cubs or the Sox. But it seems that in all too many cases, all too many of us wish bad luck on the other team and take delight when they do poorly. It is as if it hurts our guys if their boys do well and succeed. The whole phenomena resembles the petty jealousy we see when the Joneses get a new car, a promotion, or win the state lottery. Good manners and a decent, God-fearing upbringing tell us that we should try our best not to envy any blessings that befall others. Such attitudes will only generate negativity, resulting in unhealthy mental attitudes of both parties involved. This makes it an effort in trying to wish all others well, or at least in a step in the right direction. As for our homespun, non-professional recommendations for remedying such commonplace, self-generated but curable maladies, may we offer the following. Worship as you choose, whatever your faith or denomination. Stay faithful to your own convictions, but respect the rights of others to do the same. We all have the God-given right to do so, unless, of course, if one's creed calls for the hatred or harm toward others. Second, with regard to politics and your right to or privilege to vote, of casting a ballot, please try to approach every election intelligently and devoid of the emotional, but rather try to get past the appeal of the candidate and his party labels and look to positions on important subjects, important issues. As to the third Chicago taboo discussion, we should all pull for the success of both sides of town. Just think of what would ultimately mean. If the Cubs won the National League pennant, and the very same season the White Sox did the same in the American League, what would we have? Duh! That's a real no-brainer. It's an all Chicago Subway Series, and as we know, that did happen in our town once before. We have to go back a few years to 1906 to be exact, when the very first intra-city World Series was played right here. And who was it that won that series? Well, if you don't know, we're not going to tell here. You'll have to just go and look it up. Just imagine, it was a full decade longer than a century. Well, that's only 110 years ago. Maybe we're due for another. So root for both sides, okay?
Yeah,
Excellent.
very good.
Who was the blowhard that wrote that article?
Yeah,
It was, I think it was one of Paul
Famous
Harvey's.
writer Jack Ryan.
That was mine.
Yeah. Very good.
Written by our moderator, Jack Ryan.
Yes.
I read it, and the only thing I have to say is thank God for spell check.
Yeah, hey, all the time. You better believe it, brother. Okay, we'll go to baseball now. We've been kind of touching on it, but
You're still correct.
baseball.
You know, when we check this fella that wrote the article to get my kid's name on that wanted to know why Springfield was so dead at this time of the year, and he wrote in there and he put it out. He says, well, we have to get these people together, both sides of the aisle, and he spelled aisle ISLE, and I thought, oh God, and I'm sending
That's why
this
we
out
don't get our
because I'm a
funding.
stickler on spelling. And
I
I'm looking
will
at
tell
it.
him about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
The
goodness.
spell check doesn't always do a good job.
Oh my goodness.
neither is that GPS because I give
Oh,
a tour
yeah.
every now and then. We're coming down Elson Avenue. Turn left. I said, don't turn left. You'll wind up in the river.
oh yeah,
Turn left. Don't turn left, for Christ's sake. What are you doing? So I'm talking back to it, too. Yeah.
That has
Me
happened.
not too
Yeah.
Guy turned left right into the lake,
Yeah.
the river, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
turn left, right. Very good.
Yeah, left,
turn-
right.
Or make a U-turn here and you're on the expressway.
Yeah.
And you really,
Yeah.
she told me I could do it.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some of the earliest remembrances and experiences you had about baseball season starting? Bill?
My dad would take me to Wrigley Field from the time I could walk, I think. And we like you say, we'd get dressed up. It wasn't just a shorts and T-shirt thing.
No.
And we just, that was our place because we could get on the L right at Thorndale and take it right to, right to the Wrigley Field.
Yeah, right to Edison.
Yeah, and it was very easy. And besides that, he used his badge to get us in for nothing. You know,
I knew you were going to bring
was
that.
always a big thing.
And it covered you, too, by the way.
But you had to pay him.
Yeah. And I can remember my mother loved the Bears, and when the Bears played there, boy, we did the same thing.
A
Yeah.
lot of people, of course, they.
I was there opening day here a couple of days ago, and took some pictures of the new, supposedly the new rejuvenated park.
Yeah.
It's a
How'd
pain
What'd you
in the
think of
neck.
it, Bill?
How'd you like the display boards?
Oh,
It
unbelievable.
just doesn't seem.
No.
for
We were
guy-
there.
for the
Took the
diehards.
atmosphere.
Well,
Yeah.
I took some of the wounded warriors there here last, whenever it was. It was about a year ago, I guess, and we took them over to Murphy's and took them around. We ended up at the firehouse where they had breakfast and so forth. And as I was walking down Waveland, here was a guy with a kid about 5 or 6 years old, and he had the kid running in between the fence that they had. There was a little opening, and he'd have the kid coming out with ivy.
Oh.
And he had a bag, and he was putting them
Putting
in there.
ivy in
I
there.
says, "What are you doing?" He says, these are going to be really worth a buck when,
Oh.
Oh.
in
They-
a little
they
while.
don't itch
He's got
to
the
death.
kid stealing the stuff.
They'll itch today.
Oh, I don't think so.
But they still got the ivy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
they
yeah,
saved it
yeah.
for your
But
side,
but
yeah.
the part that they tore down, there was ivy there. And, he had the kid had stones, and he had pieces of sod and everything the kid
Yeah.
could get.
I could
We
never.
know who designed the idea to have ivy in the bleachers, right?
Supposedly, yeah. Bill Beck.
Bill Veck. His
Junior.
father ran the team,
Yeah, it's
William Beck Sr.
Yeah, he was. You know how that happened too. He was the
Newspaper man?
yeah, he was
What happened?
a reporter, and he was always knocking the Cubs. And William Wrigley invited him to lunch. He said, why are you always, so negative? He says, because you got a lousy team, that's why. He says, what would you do if you were running the team? He said, I do this, this, and this. He said, you're hired as general manager. And then he brought his son in there.
He did it for a long time, didn't he?
I don't. The father, his senior died in the late 30s, I think.
Yeah, but he was starting in the 20s somewhere, so.
Yeah, you might have had 10 years or so,
Yeah,
and then
that's a long time. And
yeah,
no,
yeah, oh yeah,
just like that.
yeah. By the way, if you want to, Bill, are you finished with? I'll tell you
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ken.
my first experience. I grew up, at Cleveland and Blackhawk, round the corner from the Hudson Avenue Police Station, by the way. And we had a settlement house, community house called the Olivet. And I used to hang around there, and they had classes, and they had instructors, and even during the war, this was during World War II. So I was hanging around there, and they were putting up, they actually put up a tennis court net. Who could play tennis, in the middle of the city?
Yeah.
So this instructor came up to me. He was an older guy, I guess, and he missed World War II. And he said, "Hey," he said, "we got tickets to Wrigley Field." And he said, "If you want to come along," he said, "we've got tickets for you, and we'll provide transportation." And with us, it was simple, Bill. Get out at North and Sedgwick and get off at Addison. But he said, go home, get permission from your mother, and he said, and if you want something to eat, bring a lunch. So we went up there, and we sat up in the upper deck. I think we were the only people in those days, the upper deck was not used. Yeah.
Up in heaven.
Yeah, and I remember the only player I remember was watching Peanuts Lowry. He was playing left field. And on the way home, we somehow got on an L car pretty much to ourselves, and it started to rain. And I remember the windows were open, and we were closing the windows to keep the rain out, And that was and that had to be, I don't know, 43, 44 or so.
And kids didn't get a lot of treats.
No,
at that time, so
no.
it stays with you.
No, and my parents never, my dad and I eventually went to Comiskey Park. I loved old Comiskey Park. I became an American League fan, but part of it was with the Yankees, And then I started going out there, and it was, and there's some attraction to the South Side. It's still
It's also
pulls
very
me.
original.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the whole
yeah.
atmosphere.
Anyway, that was my introduction to Major League.
Do you remember who they
Baseball.
played that day?
No, I don't recall, truthfully. But you know, my brother used to go to games, and he would bring back scorecards, etc. And over the years, we've sort of lost them all. And the Cubs used to.
You don't remember who was playing? Typical Cub fan.
Yeah.
Who was playing?
No. You know, I used to like you at one time, but
I'm
But-
sorry, I couldn't pass that up.
yeah,
When you serve up a high fastball, I got to hit it.
yeah. Well, we were in the upper deck. Who could see? You know.
Right.
But it was so nice of and the Olivet was that way. You know, you went over there and they had lessons, and you could
Yeah, it's
work.
like an off the street.
Yeah, you could
place,
play
yeah.
checkers, you could play chess, you could work on a. They had a.
It was kind of like
Crafts
the
you could do.
midnight basketball of its day, huh?
Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah.
And they had a branch of the public library there, and I used to, you know. So
The
I
difference was there was no big federal money going into it.
No,
Just that
no.
open place up
No.
there.
By the way, I got to tell you one little quick story. Later on, I'm working as a senior fire alarm operator, and I never had to answer the telephone, but the phone rings, fire phone, and I look, and both of my switchboard men are both busy, so I grab it. So a lady says, "Oh, we have a young lady here who just passed out." And I said, "Is she breathing?" "Yeah, she's breathing." "Do you know what caused it?" "No, I don't know." And she says, "I'm in the clinic at 1441 North Cleveland."
Right
And she said, "Do you know where that's at?" Now, I could do 20 minutes on the corner
Yeah.
of Blackhawk and Cleveland,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
didn't. I said, "Yes, I do," but I wanted to get that ambulance going. But I thought of all the things for
Yeah,
her to say.
right
You
by
know
your
where
house.
Cleveland? Yeah, I grew up.
14 North.
Yeah,
off and right there.
yeah. I grew up 20. Lived for 20 years, a half a block away.
They made a movie about you then, The Kid from Cleveland, right?
Kid from Cleveland, right? Ta-dam, boom.
For the note for all you young kids who are watching or listening, that was a 1949, I think, movie with George Brent and Rusty Tamblyn and Bill Veeck and about the Cleveland Indians in 48, 49.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I never saw the. Yeah.
I'll get you a copy.
But,
I'm
yeah,
a little out of turn here. I know we're supposed to take
Yeah.
turns, but the last time I read something about a Wrigley Field, John, possibly our encyclopedia will come to you. Wasn't it Wrigley Field called Weegham Park?
Yeah.
At one time,
Or
yeah.
Wegham, or was it?
we-
And the Bears
It was a
played there
Federal
for
League
many
park.
a year.
Well, later on, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it,
Yeah.
I never hear anyone talk about it
Short-lived
as
Federal
another
Yeah.
another
Couple of
thing,
years
you
it
know?
was-
And
yeah.
and then nationally, Weigman bought the Cubs. They were on the
Right.
west side.
That was part of the deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
Going
I
out the
think it
Federal
was to
League?
get rid of the Federal League. And by the way, that is where your turn will come.
That's all right.
Our turn will come.
Your turn will come. The federal judge that handled that case were
Kennesaw
Federal
Mountain
League,
Landis.
Kennesaw
yes.
Mountain Landis.
Okay.
And you know what he did? He deliberately did not make
Dragged
it.
his feet on it, huh?
Dragged his feet.
Yeah.
You know the story.
Looked
And so-
like God in a very bad mood.
Ah.
That was what
Well,
they said about Landon.
yeah,
I
God
never got
in
to a
very
lot of
bad
games.
mood.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was. Remember the story where he sentences a guy to like 15 years in the penitentiary, and the guy says, "Judge, have a heart. I'm 76 years old. I'll never last that long.
Do the best you can.
Do the best you can." Yeah.
like Hester, who's our
Danny
Hester?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Isn't that a shame? Yeah, yeah.
What a story! But I'll interject because I
Yeah.
jumped in too many times.
Yeah.
But I haven't gone to a lot of games at Wrigley. Passed the place a million times.
Yeah.
But my dad had very little time to like go to things like that, and when we would go, what stands out to me, as I mentioned, I'm originally from Minnesota. Our town is Ely, E-L-Y, and we were then 6,000 population. We're now about 3. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
You're half. Huh?
Yeah. It's,
No, 3 people.
me and the other guy.
Yeah.
And so the point was, what I remember is we'd be sitting there and, it was packed. And my dad would just look around and go, God, there's more people here than in Ely. You know,
Yeah.
if he ever said anything, he said the same
Thing
sentence
all
every
the
time.
time.
It just was like, you know, that was his way of marking his territory. as
All
well.
those people with nothing to do.
Yeah, well, you know,
Hey,
but
but-
that was that. Instead of talking about a ball game or
Yeah.
anything,
Talking
yeah,
about Ely,
yeah.
Bill, do you remember Mike Kincannon? He was a battalion chief, retired.
Yeah.
Guess where he lives now?
In Ely.
Ely,
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Does he?
So-
I
so-
bet you I know
Added
where he
one to
lives.
the population.
3001.
There you are, and
2001.
I bet you he's on an area called Burnside Lake. If you have his
Yeah,
address,
he's on a lake.
yeah, Burnside. I know where it is.
Is that somewhere north of the Twin Cities? I mean,
Yeah,
land of 1,000 lakes.
126 miles northeast of Duluth.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, past
Oh, wow, that's
international.
Bemidji
We're up
way,
near
that's
It's way up
Canada.
near the Canada,
Yeah, it's
Canadian
a fishing
border.
town,
Yeah.
you know, resort. And
Duluth is where
all that.
we always went.
Yeah.
Duluth.
Yeah.
But many
Never been up there.
many people who visited or came on vacation came back to retire there
Right.
and
Yeah.
built some great
You
places
have
to
to,
live
you
in.
have to like snow.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, if it
50
gets
below,
cold,
50 below.
I think you
Yeah.
should.
What's his name?
Mike Kincannon.
Okay,
we should
I'm
call
going
that
home next week.
the land of sky blue waters.
There are
Very
many
cool.
blue,
Very
many lakes.
My dad,
It's a great place.
my dad and I
Have
went
a
up.
beer.
The farm was my uncle and aunt's farm was in Willow River,
Okay, yeah.
and we went up there. We'd always go up there hunting.
hmm
And my aunt came here to visit her sister, my mother, with a couple of her kids and that. And at that same time, my dad and I went up there deer hunting, and we got it done. And all of a sudden, it really started to get cold, and it got down to the point where the indoor
Got ice
light
on.
switches
Oh,
were
Well,
getting icy.
icy. Mhm.
It
Wow.
was 54 below
Oh,
zero.
brother.
Winter 50 for sure.
And we came back, we left there, we came back with our load, and my aunt was still there, Florence was still there, and we told her, no, you're full of it.
Yeah.
No, you're full. Until they went back home and found out that, it was that cold.
Oh,
And they called back down and they said, we apologize.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
They're very healthy people.
Oh, yeah.
So,
You
John,
gotta
it's your
hear.
turn.
Yeah.
I didn't
I think
even know
International
that.
Falls held records for cold in lower United States.
Yeah.
Because
We're right by Bemidji, which
Yeah.
is the coldest
Which is
spot.
cold
you know.
spot.
Yeah.
I love it up there. We're going
I
back
do
this
too.
fall deer hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bullwinkle came from, what was it, Frostbite Falls,
or
Minnesota?
something. And,
Rocky and Bullwinkle came from Frostbite Falls,
Frostbite.
Minnesota.
the
Didn't know
singer,
that.
what, Bob Dylan, where's he from? Probably Evelyn or
You mean Bobby Zimmerman?
Virgin. That
was his name.
Yeah, and his dad's got a hardware store there, Zimmerman's. Just like the liquor store.
Just like the liquor
store.
Anyway,
Well,
John.
I talked about my first experience at Comiskey Park. My hero was Nelson Fox.
Oh,
the
yeah.
He
name
was the
comes to
great
me.
second baseman for the White Sox in the 50s and into the early 60s. He would always bat over 300. I don't remember him ever. His batting average almost never went below 300. He usually led the league in fewest strikeouts. He would have maybe 3 or 4 or 5 strikeouts in the entire season. And he was a little guy, a little wiry guy, and he was number 2, and Fox was my hero. Never got to meet him or get his autograph or anything of that sort. And when I was in college, I took up the Cubs when Leo Durocher became the manager of the Cubs, because by that time I knew a lot more about baseball than I had. And to me, Leo Durocher, that was like legendary baseball. Durocher was from the days, the Gas House Gang in the 30s, and he was colorful. And so I remember with a friend one time after class I was at DePaul, we would get on the elevated and go up to Wrigley Field and see a late afternoon game at Wrigley Field. But my uncle used to take us to Wrigley Field because he was a Cub fan. And I remember in the late 50s going there, and Rogers Hornsby was
the
coaching
name, yes.
for the Cubs. Now, Hornsby, for any of the listeners who Hornsby is like just a notch or so below a Babe Ruth. I mean, Hornsby is in the same category as a DiMaggio or a Mantle or a Willie Mays. One of the greatest players of
Hit
all time.
424 when you.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
which
Just
is a record, I
incredible.
think.
Raja.
Raja.
He's coaching for the Cubs. Cubs did something particularly boneheaded. There was some really dumb play. I don't remember what it was, but my uncle and everybody else in the was
They
just
were
furious.
devastated.
And
McKenna will remember.
in those days,
I'll
when the-
I'll remind you shortly.
when the Cubs would leave, when the game was over, apparently you could go in and you could see the Cubs walking on this catwalk up above you
Yes.
into the showers, into
Yeah.
the clubhouse or whatever. And my uncle, as Rogers Hornsby,
gonna let him
I'm
know.
like 9 years old. I didn't know, maybe I heard the name of Rogers Hornsby, but my uncle says, "Hey Hornsby, what about that play?" And I can remember Hornsby turned and looked at my uncle, and he just kind of shook his head
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God!" I mean, the expression was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my
Yeah.
God!" And he
A
shook.
reminder.
Now, I mean, when I found out who Rogers Hornsby was, now I think I saw Rogers Hornsby, and he was in uniform. He wasn't playing, but he was in uniform.
Yeah.
So that's another big memory of
Oh,
mine. is,
sure.
the-
Rogers Hornsby in the 1950s said the only player he would pay to see was Jungle Jim Rivera.
Ah.
The only one he'd pay to play. See play.
And I met Jungle Jim Rivera, and I got his autograph. After the '59 White Sox won the pennant, lost the series, he came to our Businessmen's Association. And as I say, I'm 9 years old. My dad, the members were allowed to bring their sons to the meeting. So I got to go to this meeting where Jungle Jim Rivera spoke about the White Sox, and I've got a color photo of the '59 Sox, the team photo, with his autograph on the.
Still got it?
Yeah, still got
You
it.
better get
Yeah.
to the antique
Yeah.
show.
59
Yeah.
White Sox with,
Yeah.
Jim Landis and Billy Pierce and Earl Torgeson and all these great.
Al
The
Smith.
names,
Yeah.
shot
Billy
in the
Goodman.
front,
Minnie
but
Minoso.
I don't
No,
remember.
Minoso's not in the 59.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah, that's right.
At the end of '57, they traded
That's
Minnie
right.
Minoso and Fred
you think of him
Hatfield
at the 50s.
for Al Smith and Early Wynn.
I got to meet Minnie Minoso. Let me one more story. I got to meet Minnie Minoso just a few years ago. He came to our Morton College awards dinner, and I'm at the same table I spoke as a former town official. I'm sitting right next to Minnie Minoso, and he's got 2 World Series rings. And I says, we're talking and introducing ourselves, and I said, "Gee, that's impressive to see those World Series rings." He says, "Here, young man." He takes it off. He says, "Take a look at it." So he hands it to me.
sounds like him.
He says, "Go ahead and try it on."
Oh.
He says, "Go ahead and try it on."
Oh, my.
So I put it on. There's a camera. There's a photographer there. We call the photographer. So I've got a
takes
picture of
you-
the 2 of us side by side with
Oh,
his
yeah.
other series ring,
Yeah.
and we're side by side with World Series rings. And I got I made sure I got a copy of that picture.
Wow.
He was just
Well, that'll be a
he was a
keepsake.
terrific guy.
Yeah.
He was it was as likable
Down
and
to earth.
oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I told him my grandfather always talked about Minoso. I remember my grandfather saying Minoso,
Yeah.
Minoso,
Yeah.
and he got a big kick out of
And
that.
he was
when
a
I told
black guy, but he was Latino
Cuban.
or Cuban.
Yeah,
Cuban,
Cuban. Yeah,
or,
yeah.
in that respect.
him. So I've
DeRocher.
got a picture wearing a World
Wow.
Series ring.
DeRocher, you said his name.
One with
Wasn't
Minnie
he
in the World
married to
Series.
Lorraine Day? the
Lorraine
movie
Day.
He
star?
was, yeah.
I remember in the
thought
50s
so.
seeing him on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember he
Yeah.
would be on What's My Line or things
Yeah.
like that with Lorraine
I
Day.
remember.
Minnie
Yeah.
was?
Yeah.
What?
No.
No,
Were they married?
DeRocher
Leo
married.
DeRocher and Lorraine Day.
Oh, yeah,
Who
Leo.
was a good
Leo-
actress.
Leo-
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
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 She was
Yeah.
a big star.
Yeah.
You know what a
They
change.
made her
Girl.
picture. Yes.
What a change, because now you go to these
I don't
shows
know
and
one.
you
I
meet
don't
these
know one
people.
movie
No, you
star.
don't.
You go to the game.
You don't know who
they
they
don't
are.
talk
That
to
Those
you.
are some of my great
They-
memories of
They
Big
don't
Yeah.
talk to you, and then you go to these shows and you got to
And
pay
they're-
$10
They're
for them
15
to
minutes
to
of fame.
do
I
that.
mean, you know,
Right,
Yeah,
they're
right,
nothing.
You know,
But that's going to be a very
the other
valuable
thing
picture.
about Minnie Minoso, he lived across the street from 63's Firehouse at 63rd and
Oh, my.
Maryland.
Yes.
Oh,
There's a hotel across the street. When he went to the park, he took the 63rd Street streetcar to Wentworth and then going, he took
yeah,
public
he was a common
transportation.
man, right.
Yeah,
Very down to earth.
very
guy.
down to
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah.
He was, to my, equal to Ernie Banks,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, he was great.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he played in I don't know how many decades. I think he played
Yeah.
in 5 different decades
Yeah.
because they
Uh-huh.
reactivated him so that he
Yeah.
could play.
Uh-huh.
When he was
Came
in
to
his,
bat in
started-
76 and 80.
Started in the 40s, I imagine. and
We
50s.
also have
he
a,
did. He came up with Cleveland.
we also have a worldwide person at Cubs Park. I don't know. Would anybody know his name now? He doesn't play ball. But
Somebody that's
Johnny
always
Woo
there.
Woo.
You got it.
Yeah.
Johnny Woo. Here's
Johnny
a guy
Woo
from
Woo.
the South Side that knows Johnny.
Johnny Woo Woo.
Yeah. Woo Woo.
Yeah.
What
And
a
don't you
character.
think we remember people and distinct things like when you said Fox, we used to say Nellie
Nellie Fox.
Nellie
yeah.
Fox.
Right?
Nellie
Yeah.
Fox, yeah.
And I always thought, why does he have a girl's name? You know, it
Yeah.
Minnie
different
Minoso.
than today's
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think
wonder
we
if there's a
didn't have
Mickey
our
Minoso.
distractions. We didn't
Yeah.
have that. Each thing had big meaning.
Yeah.
We didn't,
Yeah.
you didn't have a lot of toys. You didn't have a lot of money. You didn't have phones.
Fox
you know.
and Louis Aparicio.
Yeah.
They were the
Yeah.
double play combination.
What
Fox and
what a
Aparicio.
great,
And they were first and second in the batting order.
Yeah.
Aparicio first and Fox was second.
But anyway,
And I remember
And the
listening.
shortstop, Chico Carrascal.
Let's save
was one of
that
the
picture.
nicknames
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, they traded Carrascal to Cleveland and after 55. They had Aparicio coming up. They traded him for Larry Doby.
Yeah.
Larry
Oh.
Doby.
He was the second black player in baseball.
Yeah.
okay.
American
The
League.
person-
Marty Marion was the
Marty
was the
Marion.
manager before
Al
the
Lopez.
senior Al Lopez.
Okay.
The Happy
Yeah.
Hidalgo, as they call
And
it.
I don't remember
I
any of
saw
that.
him
Right
manage.
time. We'll continue this in a
We'll be
moment.
right back after these messages of interest and importance.
Hey friends, do you need an awning over your front, side, or rear door? Or your windows? How about a canopy for your carport? Or a patio cover over your patio so you can enjoy being outside in case of rain in the warm weather? All you have to do is call Awnings and More, and Raphael Bogus will drive over, measure up whatever you need, and go from there. You can call Awnings and More at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. So if you need an awning for your windows or doors, call Raphael Bogus at Awnings and More at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. Raphael also installs hand railings for your front, side, or back steps. You must be safe when you go up and down the steps, especially in bad weather. So for awnings or handrails, call Raphael Bogus at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. Call today for a free estimate.
Now back to our show.
And it's your turn.
Oh,
Your turn.
okay. Early memories of going to the baseball games. Again, since my dad was a South Sider, several games in the late 40s, early 50s, the old Comiskey Park.
Yeah.
And didn't interact that much with the players, but my memories of those days were most of the audience, the men were in business suits, at least business casual. Women were dressed up. No fear in those days of naughty language. There might have been a few people overserved once in a while, but they seemed to know how to behave, and they might have been taken out. But none of these more recent fears, I think, of being exposed to bad language at the park. Not a lot of people being overserved. And you could invariably get something from the vendor by handing him less than $1 bill.
Oh, for sure.
A dime, a quarter went a long way.
Yeah.
I'd like to get some of those early prices in the ballparks in the early 50s, but everything was more formal and people were well behaved in those days, which you don't see anymore. Manners counted.
Okay,
You obeyed your parents.
I have a question to ask you now. We are talking about the White Sox. Who was the broadcast announcer for the White Sox, and what radio station in Chicago carried the White Sox games?
It's got to be Bob Elson.
Bob Elson. Bob Elson
Comes
and
to
Milo
mind.
Hamilton
Milo
for a while.
Hamilton.
Okay, and what radio station?
WCFL.
Yeah.
Okay.
WCFL, the voice of labor in
Okay.
Chicago. WCFL, the Chicago White Sox Baseball Network.
Yeah.
And Bob Elson was known as the Commander. Michael
Commander.
Now the Commander.
The-
Didn't he
Bob
have a
Elson.
naval rank or something? I
He was,
think.
yeah, he was a lieutenant commander.
Commander in the Navy.
Okay, now let's get on a streetcar and go north.
Okay.
Let's go to Wrigley Field.
Wrigley Field.
Okay, who was the PA announcer for the Cubs?
Pat Piper.
Pat Piper.
Pat Piper.
Ooh, you guys know it.
You're
So
right,
walk
good
around with a
questions
megaphone
there,
in
John.
the old days.
Yeah.
How about for the Sox?
Here's the battery. He would say, "Here's the battery."
Battery.
1, 2
For
syllables.
today's game.
Not battery.
Yeah.
Battery. Here's
Battery.
the battery
Battery.
for today's game.
Who was the announcer for both clubs?
Jack
Jack
Brickhouse.
Brickhouse.
Peterbilt.
On TV.
Yeah.
Harry
Yeah.
Carey.
Great,
Harry
great
Carey.
Jack
Those were
Brickhouse.
just
Harry Carey.
And now we
Hey,
got
hey,
another
Yeah,
guy.
but not at the same time,
no,
though, right?
no.
No,
No,
but
no,
Jack
but
Brickhouse.
now you got
yeah.
another
Jack
guy
Brickhouse
that's with the
was-
Sox that was with the Cubs.
Steve Stone?
He's
Yes.
married
He
to
played for
Bill
both teams.
Cemetery.
Yes, he did.
But those were distinct
Yeah.
sounds.
Those announcers
Oh,
had
yeah.
a personality,
Right,
which you
right.
don't get too much
Everything
of.
Oh, they-
you
yeah,
say
they
is
were.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're
Vince
up, Rich.
Lloyd. Vince Lloyd was the
There
sidekick
you
for
go.
Jack
I
Brickhouse.
Yeah.
liked Vince Lloyd, and he had a rare opportunity to interview Nixon. Nixon come to one of the ball games or
I
something?
think
That
maybe
sounds
could have
familiar.
been Reagan. Was it?
No, it was
Reagan?
Nixon and
Possible.
Lloyd Pettit was. Is that
Was it
right?
I
DiMaggio?
know Reagan
Okay.
came to a Cubs game when he
Okay.
was president because he had once broadcast the Cubs. Used to
Yeah,
recreate the
used
games.
to yeah. Nixon was in Pettit was
Lloyd Pettit.
yeah.
You
Was
knew
it
the
Lloyd
year.
Pettit? No, who were we talking about?
Well, there was Vince Lloyd, and there was
Vince
Lloyd, and there was Lloyd Pettit.
Yeah, no, it was Vince Lloyd. And
Harry
that wasn't
Creighton,
his
too.
real
Remember
name.
Harry
His
Creighton
real name
doing the
was
game with him?
Scaffold
Guys?
or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, guys.
He took
Probably
his
used the
brother.
first and second name.
Remember
his
Harry
brother.
Creighton doing the games with Jack Brickhouse? That name?
No.
It could be, yeah. I don't, yeah.
How about Vince Lloyd? One time there was we were watching, Cub game was on all these days, right? So somewhere nearby, a quarter mile away, there's a fire. So as a joke, I said, "We now switch you to Lloyd Pettit at the fire." They did the exact thing. They sent him over to the fire.
That was the one that the fire department wasn't even called yet. It
Oh.
was over in the 1100 block of Patterson. I was watching the game. And, and the next thing you hear a siren, and it burned the
Didn't even call.
building.
Well, you can't go too early. Can't kill the
Yeah,
job.
you can't- right.
Rich, you're up.
Well, I thought I covered my early
he was,
experiences at the
okay.
ballpark.
Yeah.
But I was just about to say, wasn't Bob Elson, looking back compared to the other announcers, a rather colorless, non-homey kind of guy?
Yeah.
And that retires the
He
side.
had a
Yeah.
very monotone.
yeah,
He
he
never
was-
got excited.
How
Right.
about
He
this
did
one?
change from the Carries
Right,
and yeah,
where
the later
the
announcers.
few you mentioned,
Yeah.
they'd
How about
be
this one
yelling
here?
right
He was
with that.
strictly a White Sox booster because
Really?
the classic Bob Elson is the next man up will be Mickey Mantle. Here he's stepping into the batter's
Yeah.
box. Here's the windup and the pitch, and he swings. It's pretty well hit, folks. It's in the upper deck.
Yeah.
The next man up will be Roger. I mean, he just hit a grand slam.
Yeah,
And
okay.
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah, no
flat
emotion.
on it, and nothing.
That's the
the
memory.
next
You
man
could
up
fall
will be
asleep
Roger
with that
Maris.
tone of his voice. Yeah.
You know who did
Yeah.
a
But he was
takeoff?
authoritative, though. You paid
Yeah.
attention to what he said.
You know who did
Yeah.
a takeoff on Bob Elson was Bob Euchre. And he
Oh,
was
Is
like-
that
yeah.
right? Boy.
He
and
would
he's,
get
and he's,
on,
and he's,
Danny
he's,
Carson.
he's doing this monotone,
Missed
and he
that.
said, and we have a report here that the Russians have sent
Yeah.
a number of missiles that are headed to New York, Chicago, and San Francisco.
And now back to the game.
No, if there is a game next week, it will be it will be Tuesday.
I know. Same highway.
Here- and one other thing they would do is the White Sox would occasionally hit a home run. They go, a White Owl Wallop and a box of White Owl cigars. Now, that's a real
Oh, yeah.
prize, a box of White Owls, huh?
Sox were known as the hitless wonders.
Yeah, at one time.
That was
But they won the World Series with that
Bill
team.
Veeck said that the wild pitch is a basic part of the White Sox offense.
it happens.
Whatever gets you on base and moves you around. Yeah.
Remember,
Yeah, but
Al, are you up
so
next?
different, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never really been to a major league ball game.
Well, you went to Wrigley, huh?
Nope, never went. To
That was the time.
You should leave right now, Alan.
Listening to
I'll take that back. I was at Wrigley Field once when I was a kid, and that was the
That's funny.
baseball game between the firemen and the policemen.
Oh,
Ooh, okay.
That was about it.
it was in like '58, but Chicago and Milwaukee, I think.
No, it was before that because I was
Hardball? Yeah.
Chicago
58, I was in the
Police
Air
and
Force
Chicago
already.
Fire played, yeah,
I remember seeing pictures
they
of that.
did.
Yeah.
Did you like it on the radio, like, or were
I
you
never,
a
wa-
fan?
never,
You
listened,
weren't a fan.
listened to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're
No doubleheader with the
excused. We'll
Yankees?
see
My
you
gosh.
next
Huh?
month. You're excused from this
Yeah,
program.
I always thought you had communistic tendencies.
Yeah, well-
Right now, are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
I watched my son play baseball. Does that count?
Yeah, that
Sure,
counts.
Sure, that's
Sure.
That was
good
more.
for
That
you.
was more interesting than
Sure.
Major League anyway.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Especially since they won the games.
Was he like in a park league, Al, or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
Pop Warner type thing. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You know,
Pop
speaking of
Warner's
that-
football.
Yeah, yeah.
Football is more interesting, especially with the
Not to wait,
cheerleaders.
not to wait.
Baseball is.
We played baseball and, our way.
You know,
Oh,
And
I
we
used-
would have tires for the base,
Oh,
or
sure.
we would have wood, or, it didn't
Sewer
have,
cover.
You didn't have to go get a special.
Jeanette, were you doing softball or?
No, yeah, softball,
Sure.
baseball,
Yeah, sure,
Well,
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
what
I
were
went-
Chicago.
kids in the neighborhood?
I went
What
out
did
and
you-
watched the stock car races at Soldier Field at O'Hare Field.
Well,
I
what,
used
Jeanette,
to watch
this question's
soccer
for you.
too, but that's
Huh?
not baseball.
What did you think of when you were young when you came here, right?
Yeah, here
Yeah.
to
Right.
Chicago.
She still is.
Yeah,
I didn't-
Yeah.
very young.
106 now.
Yeah.
I mean, how old?
6 years old.
Okay, what did you think of the 16-inch game that we have here, the 16-inch softball?
Well,
Oh, that thing.
in respect to
The
Playing it or
14-inch,
watching it.
the change. I guess I couldn't say I was so serious that changes made anything, but I think I liked the smaller.
Yeah.
I think I did.
That's
Yeah.
Because that's all I knew.
Chicago is one of the
you
few
know, for a
places in
while.
the country that plays.
That
16
Plays it,
inches.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and no gloves, etc.
oh,
No,
no.
yeah.
Right.
God,
Yeah.
That was the
even-
Mike Ryko
I
big
think a couple of my
controversy.
bent
Playing
fingers
16-inch
aren't
softball with
arthritis,
gloves.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They play them with gloves in Lincoln Park.
But
The,
you were neutral.
16-inch
Nothing-
game was started to be indoor game. It was started
Yeah,
to be an indoor
was
thing
called
by the Park
indoors.
District.
Right.
And
Right, a what?
Park District started it.
Oh.
And that got away,
Yeah.
slow pitch. And the thing is, you think you can't miss that big ball coming, but you can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we ended up not to interfere with our subject at Ashland and Van Buren.
Oh.
Where the Secretary of State office.
Sure,
and all
yeah,
that is.
sure.
And my dad was a veterinarian, so
Yeah.
we had a hospital right on the 1400 block. But we had a settlement house, as Bill was saying, and
Yeah.
that or whoever ran to him
Yeah.
to play, you.
Yeah.
And that's how we started. I mean,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
part of what
Yeah,
they taught
they
us,
organized, yeah.
played, right.
Yeah.
And, 7 years old and that.
Yeah.
Then we got to the Northwest Side
Yeah.
right in that time.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
one
and the
of-
Northwest Side was
Now-
Dillon Stadium. And
Yeah.
that's where we used to play. We had the
Oh, and
Union and the fire
California in
department,
there, was
and
it?
we had the donkeys.
Yeah.
we would
Donkey
play
baseball?
donkey
See,
baseball
yeah.
and there were all kinds of variants.
Yeah,
of,
Is
See,
he
well,
still,
yeah.
still running?
Yeah.
Dillon's is still there. Yeah.
Yeah,
they
the
just-
one thing you guys
just
missed was the old
reactivated
Luma Girls baseball.
Yeah.
I remember that was on television on Channel 9 when I was a little guy.
Well, it's a field right by Berto and Central, close to where I live,
Yeah.
Right by the
Yeah.
park.
right across the street from the
Or
park.
Across the street, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it called? Cole Spencer or something
I
like
don't
that?
I think all the
Yeah.
time.
It closed in
Late
about
40s.
51, 52
Yeah.
because they built a track house there, basically. And they also got Martin Luther School, or what used to be
Luther North, yeah.
Luther North.
Luther
yeah.
North,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that was all there, yeah.
Portage Park had the Olympics there, when
Yeah, that was.
In the 60s,
Actually, that's
yeah.
the funny
That
story
was a-
about that is the first time I saw it was I was in the Azores, saw it on Movietone News. Before that time, I was in the Air
You're
Force
ta-
and I wasn't around the house.
Yeah, they're talking about your old neighborhood. You grew up 2 blocks away,
No, across the street.
across the street, yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, are you up,
Still is.
Jeanette, or did you do your...
I to tell you.
Mr.
Unless you
McKenna.
want me to tell you
All
about
right.
this, but I
Well, we'll
think you
finish
should
this round,
talk.
then we go.
You should talk.
My early memories, naturally, going to Comiskey with my father. While I am a Sox fan, I am not a hater because my uncles on my mother's side were all diehard Cub fans. My mother was raised in Wrigleyville, so. But early memories, I remember. I'm guessing it was about 10 or 12 years old, and we were at Comiskey Park with a bunch of kids from the neighborhood, and we were screaming and yelling, and I remember there was a kid sitting next to me screaming and yelling so loud he was annoying the people in front of us and almost got us thrown out.
Ryan?
A loudmouth redheaded kid.
Yeah.
And I always wondered what happened.
Whatever happened to that kid?
What happened to that little loudmouth?
That was a Cub Scout outing, wasn't it?
One of the there's stories. I mean, there's stories legendary about the Cubs Sox rivalry and the differences between the two teams and fans at teams. Two quick stories. I was at a game at Wrigley. Sutcliffe was pitching. Now, Comiskey Park, the fans are slightly different. They're a little bit more rowdy, and if you're yelling at a player, I forget, was it John that was talking about your uncle yelling at some of the players? Well, now at Comiskey, you hear the classic, and of course I can't say it on the radio, but the F words and the J words and I was at Wrigley Field and Sutcliffe was pitching, and I actually heard this from a Cub fan who yelled at Sutcliffe, "Hey, Sutcliffe, you're inconsistent."
A pox.
And I turned. I said, "Inconsistent? That's the best." I mean, at least throw in the F word in front of inconsistent.
I'm highly disappointed in you, sir.
Right, yeah.
Give me
For
a break.
shame.
Yeah.
Excuse
Yeah.
me.
And another classic difference in stories. At a televised game, they had the leadoff man, and it was televised from Comiskey. And this is when Harry Carey was in the hospital. He was sick. So I forget who the sportscaster was. He was interviewing someone from wasn't the White Sox, and he said, this guy said, the player said, and I know we're here in Chicago, and I know we're at Comiskey Park, but I'd just like to, if Harry Carey is watching, I'd just like to wish him good luck. And we know that Harry is, beloved here in the city of Chicago. And as he's speaking, there is a Sox fan standing up in the stands with a big sign that said, "Drop dead, Harry."
Hey, listen, we and Kenny will know this. I almost burned down Comiskey Park, the old Comiskey Park.
Did you
Remember
have
when we had that fire?
I remember the fire. I didn't know you were involved.
I was captain of 19.
Oh. Apropos of that, and I'll never forget, I was watching a game, and Harry Carey was announcing for the Sox at the time, and he makes what I thought was the dumbest thing in the world. You can hear the sirens, and they had a pretty good fire, too, by the way. Mm-hmm. But it was under the stands, and Harry keeps saying, "How come there's no fire trucks out by second base? There's no, I don't see, you idiot, there's no water out, there's no hydrants out by second base. Why should they be there, Yeah, it ended the game, too, didn't it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Called
We
on the
took a
count of
lot of
fire?
res in front of
Well,
the
when I really liked Harry is in the end when he totally and completely lost it.
You
I
always
mean, even
lost it.
Steve Stone, when he was there, he'd let him go.
Yeah.
When you-
Oh, yeah, no.
I mean, the stuff he'd come up with.
Well,
Yeah.
that
You
was
know, the
Budweiser
encephalitis family is watching from Houston with their dog Waldo, and Steve's going to look at him like, "What the hell are you talking
And he
about?"
never actually knew who was at bat. Well, here's a man coming around third. He didn't know. Here's a man trying to score.
and this brings up Rodriguez, and
Somebody out there.
and I don't know why he started this, but he continued again when he totally lost it at the end. Rodriguez, and we all know Rodriguez spelled backwards.
That was his other.
Legadar.
Yeah, look at him like, what in the name of God are you talking about?
Do you remember his interview
that was
with
the
Bill
first
Murray?
case of beer
Bill Murray
after.
stopped in there one time.
He was always
I guess he was always welcome. So they're talking. He said, "Bill, how's your mom doing?" He said, Oh, she died 2 years ago. What else is happening, Bill? Just keep right on going.
Segue.
Now, can I say something? And giving the devil his due, going back to like 1977, when Harry Carey and Jimmy Pearsall were teamed up, they were the best thing on television. Not just in sports, the best thing, period. You know? And one time, what they were arguing about something, and Harry says to Jimmy, "You're crazy, Jimmy." And Jimmy says, "Yes, I am, Harry. I got the papers to prove it." But they were really. I mean,
They were good. Yeah.
Wasn't one of the first of the real colorful announcers, Dizzy Dean?
Oh, yeah.
I remember catching a little movie, I think, who was playing his part?
Dan Daly.
Dan Daly.
Dan
Right.
Daly, yeah.
Pride
The
of
Pride
St. Louis.
Pride of St.
Yeah.
Louis, yeah.
Yeah.
And that
You know,
goes back to the 40s, I would
I
think.
just saw a little clip where Dizzy, I never heard him. I mean, I know of him and all that. He was interviewed by Dick Cavett, and my son-in-law, my son rather, oldest son, recorded it. And Dizzy Dean says that it was a, straight-laced interview, and he said, in 1934, Dizzy said, I won 30 ball games for the St. Louis Cardinals. It's the last time, he didn't say it, but it's the last time someone won 30 games in the National League. His salary was $7,500 a year,
Yeah.
which maybe for 1934 wasn't
Good money.
Not
like
bad.
$200 a
It's
week.
not comparable what they
Babe
get paid
Ruth
today.
earned less than that, I think.
At the beginning.
Oh,
I think you're
not
lucky
at
you
the
got
end, though.
$40
Babe,
a
Oh,
week.
in
He
the
was
end,
getting-
maybe in the beginning.
Babe, because Babe signed a contract for like $80,000.
80,000.
Then, yeah.
They
Someone,
said, and they said,
As
you
it
know,
came
babe, you're making more. This is when Hoover was president. He says, the president at that time got 75,000. He says, you're making more than the president of the United States. And the babe says, yeah, but I had a better year than he did.
Yeah. That's the
What
line.
a great
Right,
line.
right, right.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a mortal sin what these guys are getting.
Oh,
now. It really is.
I batted in
why I
that
don't think
13
you have
runs
the
last year, and I'm only
same
getting $1.5 million.
feeling about all
No,
that.
it's hard to get thrilled about a guy that's making.
Exactly,
But
or when they get put out
football,
for 2
any
months,
organized
and when they
sport, I
collect
mean,
the
it's a-
first
Well,
two
and
And
they
plus,
go out
and, you
there
know,
and
talking,
say,
ab-
"Oh,
talking
this guy
about
got
old
hurt."
timers,
I said,
What-
"Oh,
the
is
swi-
that right? Yeah.
the switching of
Making
teams.
$75 million.
Could you
so I
ever
think they'll
imagine-
get hurt.
Get a trainer or something.
Could you ever
Yeah.
imagine Ernie Banks in a Cardinals uniform? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, you just
Oh,
couldn't.
that's it.
Or Joe DiMaggio
Yeah, right.
or Williams and
Yeah.
those guys. No, they.
Now it's nothing. They switch like
No.
who cares?
Yeah.
You have to get a book every year to see who's with where.
Yeah.
You knew that Ted Williams, Boston Red Sox.
And a
right.
week ago, they
Willie
came
Mays,
to the team,
Giants.
And now they're on the team.
Yeah, right,
You know what
yeah,
I mean? It's like
yeah.
it takes that
Yeah.
fight out of it.
Well,
Well, there's a lot of politics involved with it, though,
That's
too.
true.
Well, they
they're
couldn't.
always.
Yeah, even more so now than ever before.
Well, they couldn't do it unless they were getting this big money from the entertainment, from the networks
From,
and
yeah, TV
TV,
and radio
TV,
and
yeah.
stuff.
That's incredible, you know.
Yeah.
I would like to tell you a story from really the good old days of baseball, long before any of our recollection, because it's one of the most famous incidents in the history of the game, and it involves one of our hometown clubs. September the 22nd, 1908. It's the last game of the season in the National League, and the Chicago Cubs and the New York Giants are tied for first place. And they're playing each other in this last game at the Polo Grounds in Manhattan. At the end of, at the bottom of the ninth, the game is tied 1-1. And with 2 out, there's one man on base. A fellow named McCormick has gotten on base. He's on first, 2 out. And the first baseman for the Giants, and actually the Giants are up to the bottom of the ninth, Fred Merkel, comes to the plate, gets a hit. He gets to first base, and he advances McCormick to third. Okay? So now the next fellow up is a man named Al Bridwell. And Al Bridwell gets a good solid hit over the second baseman's head. McCormick on third comes in to score what will be the winning run. It's the bottom of the ninth, tied 1-1. He scores the winning run. The fans go crazy. This is the Polo Grounds. The place is packed. And Fred Merkel, who's on first, sees him about to cross home plate and decides the game is over. So Fred Merkel heads for the dugout. Johnny Chance of Tinker to Evers to Chance. Johnny Evers is the second baseman for the Cubs, and he sees what's happening. He signals for the ball, and Tinker, Fred Tinker, I believe his name was Fred Tinker, the shortstop, gets the ball, but before he can throw it to Evers, he's wrestled down by a Giants pitcher who comes out of the bullpen or wherever, and tackles and gets the ball away from him. And the Giants pitcher was named McGinnity. He hurls the ball into the stands, into the bleachers. One of the Cub pitchers, a fellow named Crow, K-R-O-H, grabs another baseball, and throws it to Evers. Evers gets this ball. It's not the game ball, just another ball. And he steps on second, and the umpire rules that Merkel was out, and that therefore the run doesn't count. Merkel's already in the dugout. They're already pouring beer over his head.
It's a force play.
Celebrate, a force. Now, the fans have poured out onto the grounds because they think the game's over. They didn't see this little drama going on second base. They just saw McCormick cross home plate, and they think the game's over and they've won. And the field is covered. And actually, there's no big PA system in 1908. There's no way of telling people. So after a while, they just give up. The Cubs now insist that not only does the run not count, but they're now entitled to a forfeit, because the rule of baseball is that if the team cannot control the fans, if the fans interfere with the conduct of the game, the home team forfeits, and the score is recorded as 9-0. So it's impossible to make any sense out of this. It goes to the league office. So the National League now has to decide what they're going to do with this. They do not reverse the ruling that Merkel was out, but they also do not award the forfeit to the Cubs. They rule that the game has to be played over
again.
So it's not technically a playoff in the literal sense.
It's a new
they
game.
They rule that this game has to be played over.
It's the same game.
Yeah, it's the same
game. Right.
And it's more than 2 weeks before this all takes place. So on October the 8th, once again in the Polo Grounds, they play the game, and the Cubs win 4-2. Fred Merkel goes down in history as, at the time, one of the most famous plays was called Merkel's Boner.
Yeah.
If you saw the Ken Burns series, he does a whole storyline about Merkel's Boner. And Merkel was a very good player, but he just made this one bonehead decision. And the interesting thing is that this gave the Cubs their third consecutive pennant. So just think, in the last 100 years, there's a phrase that has never been used again. The Cubs winning their third consecutive
108 years.
National League pennant.
Right.
Even one.
And
Merkel's-
that has to be
Well, no, that's not
historical, that it never happened in any
Yeah,
other game.
and to think, I mean, the Giants thought they had won the league championship because of this, because of the fact that Merkel wanted to get into the dugout and celebrate, and because of this illicit ball that is tossed in, and because of the ruling of the umpire.
Legitimately, he made it.
Yeah, I mean, he did
count.
cross. But so that's the story of Merkel's Boner, 1908.
On an appeal, he would have been out anyway, probably, because he didn't advance, and plus there was someone behind him, right? Single?
The fellow that hit the single,
Yeah.
Bridwell had hit the set, so it's a force out,
You know, there's also a preliminary that a similar play had occurred like a month before, and Evers had appealed to the umpire, and I'm trying to think of who the umpire was. He had been a major league player himself, and he dismissed it, but the idea was planted in his mind.
Already the concept was there.
The concept was there,
Yeah.
force out.
Kind
you
of
know.
plan.
But
Yeah.
what Merkel did was common to all. What happened? The Giants had a clubhouse like out in center field. He didn't
Right.
go to the dugout. He went to there, and he wanted to avoid the crowd, which was
Because he knew that the stands were going to
Stand-
empty.
yeah,
the place
right.
was
Right.
packed.
And then
Yeah.
let's compare it to now. That would
Yeah.
have been a true bus stop, wouldn't it? With all the madness on
Oh,
the
sure.
field.
Yeah.
The
And there weren't no Andy
Decision.
Frayne ushers.
it's,
There ain't none no more either.
exactly.
They're gone.
And,
Yeah.
But I mean, it just shows you that,
yeah,
right or wrong or bad or good,
yeah.
it got
Yeah,
settled
and I
very
never-
differently.
I never could see fans running out into the
No,
into
no,
the,
they
you
didn't
know.
belong there.
Well, we always
No.
hear that. Everybody hears the term "tinker to Evers to chance."
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I mean,
That's
they
what it
were
was,
real.
huh?
They weren't just and here's a very important play that they were vitally involved in.
Right, right.
All three also managed the Sox at one time
Yeah.
or other. You know, not all together, but I mean, Obviously,
They
three
did?
managers could have done this. Yeah,
Frank Chance, Johnny Evers.
Yeah.
Frank
you
Chance.
sure?
Bad chance.
Yeah, are you sure?
That
Pope
producer,
Catholic?
Ken Burns, has really been opening our eyes to history, haven't they?
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
the
think
baseball
I
one,
don't
yeah.
think Evers
Yeah,
would
he
take
does a
over
lot. He
managing
does a
the
lot
American
of
League.
architectural research
Managed.
Yeah,
too.
he,
Yeah,
I mean,
managed.
just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he
if you
does
got
his
nothing else to do.
homework.
Yeah.
You know, he brings
Manager or
up
coach?
points that
Yeah.
There are some
Yeah.
Managers or coaches?
There are some people out
Been
there
an
that
assistant
really
manager.
Evers managed the
get down to the
Boston
nitty-gritty
Braves
of,
later on.
yeah,
whatever we're talking
yeah,
about.
the depth of it.
Now,
desk.
children.
Okay.
Now, children.
Now for another intermission. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
Well, friends, now that the warm weather is here, and now is the time to think about your roof, siding, and gutters on your home or place of business. We could get some real heavy rainstorms within the next few months. So be sure to check the roof, siding, and gutters are in good shape, and you don't want mold, mildew, or attic in your crawl space, or drip, drip, drip on the ceilings in your rooms, or have walls damaged by a leaky gutter or bad sidings. So don't have double expense. Sooner or later, you're going to have to get them repaired. So call Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at 630-616-1359. Mike Besh will drive over in his shiny red truck with ladders on top and Besh Brother roofing signs on the doors. Mike will look over your roof, siding, and gutters and give you an estimate and go from there. So don't forget, don't have double expense. Call Besh Brothers Roofing for a free estimate at 630-616-1359. That's Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at 630-616-1359.
Back to our discussion. Baseball.
We're back, and we're around the far turn anyway, not
Far
quite the
turn.
home stretch. And it's all about baseball. Who's up? Did you speak your part, Tom? And
Yeah.
anybody else?
Second, huh?
Can I say a little bit, too, about memories of the ballpark?
Sure.
Sure.
I'll say real quickly. Or you want to do your part first?
No, you just
Okay.
Time, Janet.
I can remember, like, we got out to 2 or 3 games a year. As Tom, the one we related to it before, one with the Scouts, and my dad and I would always get out to see the Yankees when it was standing room only, which was great to see
Which was
Mickey
every-
Mantle and
every
Yogi
game,
Berra, everybody.
yeah.
Huh?
Every game was standing room only.
No, we once. And then in the fall or something, we'd always get out to hospital employees night or something like that as a family. But I remember now, you spoke of a scout outing that one time. We were now, by this time, we're 14, 15 years old, as explorers, the older scouts. And it was you and Mike Tynan and myself, and I think Ray Nells were the 4 guys. We were up in the left field, upper deck now. One of the vendors shortchanged one of us on a Coca-Cola or something. see. But now you can see where the mind doesn't fully develop. We don't think of reporting him or anything. We thought we were going to push him over the side. Honest to God.
True Sox
That'll show
fans.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, we got shortchanged, so we'll just kill the guy.
Yeah, right.
He owes us a nickel. so-
Yeah, right. There's no jury in the world that would argue with that.
You think maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation now, Tom? If that happened. But I mean, it was.
you left that out of your.
You look at it now, you think,
And in
God.
other news, a vendor was pushed to the upper deck today at Comiskey
Pushed to his death over a change discrepancy.
And no cameras to watch.
The offender said, he owed me a nickel. He ain't going to get away with that.
It was a little more than that.
Let's watch it in slow motion.
He came by. We actually went to push. We got.
What do you think? I'm a Cub fan?
Don't get his number and report him to somebody.
We went out to
was,
a Cubs
big
game,
logic.
and this is not too well. It is quite a while ago, and my son was working for the Park Ridge Police, and there was a single guy there that worked with him, and he told my daughter that I got a guy that, looking for a date. You want to go to the game? Oh, yeah, sure. So she came along, and she liked the Cubs. She goes once or twice a year. And this guy, big guy, and he started drinking. And we all had a beer with him and that, and then he kept it up. And I looked over, and here he had a dog in his pocket too. And he kept it up, and he kept it up. And now we ordered another round of beer, and here this guy gets it in his mouth, and the poor woman that was in front of him got it all. She got it all. She had long hair. I mean, it was just so.
Who needs that?
And we're apologizing. He didn't say a word.
No.
Yeah.
He didn't say a word.
But he did.
We're apologizing. Before you knew it, I looked around. Hey, where's Beth? She left right then.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of here.
Isn't beer good for your scalp?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
There was an episode of Al Smith in, I think, the 59 Sox where he's going back against the wall,
Yeah.
and the fan reaching for the ball drops his cup of beer. And
Yeah.
it
caught it on
drowns
Al.
Al Smith.
And then Al went out off season to promote tickets, and they went into Inland Steel or somewhere, South Shore, and they go, "Hey, you're laughing!" They bring him on. The guy
that dumped the
was
beer
there in the office. Yeah. First, he thought he threw it at him, but
No.
Al Smith's beer bath in Game 2.
By the way, one of the games I went to was I'd gotten a call like around 11 in the morning. He said, "Hey, I got it was a security guard." He said, "I got 2 tickets to the Cub game," and it was like in '62 where the Mets were like in their second year. So, and they were good seats. They were box seats right behind the Mets dugout. Normally, we always sat by the Cubs dugout, but this is the other side. Anyway, so the Mets went on to win 19-1. And it was just an unbelievable game. Windy game, balls were flying all over the place.
Excuses.
And at back in New York, two Mets fans are talking, and one says, "Hey, did you see we scored 19 runs against the Cubs?" And the other guy says, "Yeah, did we win?"
You're talking about tickets, and I think this would be a PR thing for everyone. Last year, and I don't remember where I got them from. I have a feeling, but I'm not going to say. I bought a couple of tickets to a Cubs game, and they came to me in an envelope, and they weren't the tickets; they were Xerox of the tickets. And I asked around, and people told me, says, "Oh yeah, that happens." And of all people that run a detective agency, I should know better. I should,
There's
Anyway,
a lot of
my
go there
daughter,
and-
I said, "Who wants to go?" Oh, Grace, my granddaughter. "Hey, yeah, I'll go there." And Beth, my daughter. "Yeah, I'll go." So I said, "Well, you go there and you take my car." I had to work, and they went. I made a friend of mine was the boss at 78's house, right by Wrigley Field, and boy, they took the car in and parked it way over in the corner. They go in and they got in the door, and then they said, "Where are these?" I mean, there were beautiful seats, like first row above the I think like third base or whatever it was. And they sit down, and some gal comes up and says, "Oh, you can't sit there." "Oh yeah, we got the tickets." Well, they were phonies.
They were phonies.
And it's my fault. Now they couldn't sit any other. I think it was they were playing Milwaukee. I forget where it was, who it was, and they said, "All right, let's get out of here." They're calling me on the phone. "Can you come?" No. They go over to the firehouse. Well, the car is way in. They got to wait until the game is over.
Game's over with,
Before they get the car
Car's
out
all
of
I
there.
was gonna say,
parked
how did
in.
you
I'm telling
handle
you,
that?
and I will Never
Hot
do
seat.
that again.
No,
Never do that.
Isn't that a shame?
And right after that, that was like August 1st, because it was Grace's birthday. I laid up August 5th. But I had it in my, maybe that's why I got the vertigo and started. I was going to go over there and really
Raise
raise
hell.
hell and talk to them and that. Yeah, and after that, I'm talking to the guys in 19, and that, oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know, 19,
the Cubs
police
were-
district is right
Counterfeit
down.
now in all sports
But it does
with
happen.
the
Even the tickets
the
themselves.
new printers and the copiers they have.
You
and
can't
different-
tell no.
And these were, I mean, you know, good seats.
Well, the Cubs have been scalping their own tickets for years too. You know,
Where'd she go?
And they,
last-
get them from each other and
last-
get there and sell.
Yeah.
When they said we think it's disgraceful that they buy tickets and then resell them, that's terrible. We'll
Yeah.
do it
We'll
ourselves.
do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, last year,
Even now,
We'll handle this.
And that's what this was.
yeah,
Can't be a
That's
scalper,
exactly
but you
what
can
it
be
was.
a ticket broker.
yeah, right.
Well, I
You
got
want-
it
you
from
want to
Make
meet-
sure it on time.
From
Okay.
sometimes with the computer now.
with
you
the
know.
computer. Yeah,
Well, go
yeah.
ahead. The lady from Minnesota is recognized.
Thank you. You know, I found a little article, and it's called "Discovering Baseball History," and I thought it was a little bit interesting. Modern baseball might have found its birth certificate in a new birth date and a new founding father. Coinciding with the start of the Major League season, a set of game-changing documents went up for sale this week. Their authenticity and significance are verified by experts such as John Thorne, Major League Baseball's official historian. The 1857 documents titled Laws of Baseball established the essentials of the modern game. The distance of the base paths is 90 feet. The length of the game is 9 innings, and 9 players are in the field. And they do it 3 years earlier. Yeah, they do it 3 years earlier than the 1860 birth date now recognized. The documents were authored by Daniel Lucius Doc Adams, making him the founding father of America's pastime, not Alexander Cartwright, who now is credited. He's the true father of baseball, and you've never heard of him. Thorne, a consultant on the sale of the papers, told the Associated Press in a phone interview. Southern California-based SCP Auctions put the documents on sale Wednesday in an auction that lasts until April 23rd.
Oh, we get
There
paid.
have been 5 bids so far, and the current highest bid of $146,000, $410, according to the auction house. Adams was the president of the New York Knickerbockers Baseball Club, which hosted a convention of 14 New York area clubs to codify the rules of baseball. It was 2 words then, and in ensuing decades evolved into baseball, and finally baseball. Meaning, of course, that they separated that word to be base and ball. Credit for the basic tenets of baseball now lies with Cartwright, whose plaque in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, calls him the father of the modern game. He was involved in the 1857 meeting. Hall of Fame spokesman Brad Horn said there are no plans to change or remove Cartwright's plaque. Plaques are cast at the time of an individual's election and rely on best information available at the time of an individual's induction. The Hall of Fame gallery features a plaque that calls the visitors' attention to this point. Horn said there were no immediate plans to acknowledge Adams' contribution, but it's something that would be considered as the historical consensus changes. We always want to take a longer lens approach to this. The documents haven't been lost or hidden in recent years, but no one quite realized their significance. The owner, whose name hasn't been released by the auction house, paid $12,000 for them in '99, and these historic documents of all kinds. But they were sold with no known authorship and minimal description. They were kept in a desk drawer until 6 months ago when the buyer approached SCP Auctions. Their significance slowly emerged after forensic, handwriting, and historical analysis. It just got better and better and more compelling, said Dan Imler, the vice president of the auctions. It was just mind-blowing once we fully realized what we had. The documents capture the game at a crossroads when rules for baseball were arbitrary. Thorne suggests the game easily could have evolved into having 9 pitchers and 1 batter instead of the opposite, and it did come very close to having 7 or 12 innings instead of 9. Thorne said that newspaper accounts and other documents have suggested 1857 as the founding year and that Adams was responsible, but they didn't carry the weight of documents that stipulate specific rules. I call these improbable survivors. It's finding what you could not have imagined might have existed. I just thought it was a little bit of
Yeah, you know, it
history.
doesn't sound. One of the reasons originally baseball was the pitcher pitched underhand,
Okay.
Yeah.
and they had the bases were what 45 feet at one
so,
time,
yeah.
and I don't know when it went to 90, but that sounds
But that's
pretty
it.
early.
That's
Seems
softball,
very, very
45
early.
feet,
Yeah.
I think.
Pardon.
I think softball is 45.
I think
feet.
softball
Yeah.
is 45, but
So do you
yeah.
think the 90 feet was a wrong interpretation?
I don't know, but
or-
I've also heard that because I was watching Antiques Roadshow, and somebody came up with it was a book in which the rules of baseball were part of it, and they had other stories in there, and that was
Yeah.
And it has
dated
its-
1835.
It has its origins even earlier than that. There are records of in the days of American independence, George Washington, of the soldiers playing a game called base.
Well, see,
Yeah.
that's
Which was-
where
which
this
was,
was
Yeah.
a little bit
based.
And
later
town
with-
ball and
Yeah.
whatever they
Town
call
ball.
it.
Forget
An
it
English
was
game of rounders or
based-
something?
Rounders,
Right.
yeah.
So there's all these origins. That, you know,
Yeah,
that
but
lead
No, most
to
of us
that.
still
But I
think of
just
Abner
thought, you know,
Doubleday.
90
The name
the
Abner
90
Doubleday
feet
comes
That's
doesn't,
why the Hall of Fame is
Right,
in
but do you
Cooperstown.
think
That's where
this
Abner
kinda,
Doubleday is
Yeah.
said to have laid out
One
the
at a
first
time.
baseball.
And Abner
did
Doubleday
the,
never had anything to do
mystery,
with
or it
baseball.
just said
They believe
we're
now.
going to keep our rules
Yeah.
the same.
Children, never.
Children.
What?
One at a time.
Well, that's almost as bad as how they got 18 holes in golf. You know,
Why?
See,
Yeah.
they had a
all
little.
the different things.
Scotsman had a little bottle in there and took 18 this about to get to the end of the game, and that was the way they
Oh,
called it.
that's how
I don't
As I,
believe
as, I,
that.
as I told Jack, it's in my contract.
Oh, yeah.
It's part
Okay.
of my contract
Wait till they're all gone.
that each year at this time, when we do a game about baseball, I get to tell you a very brief story, which also goes back to 1908.
Okay, go ahead.
1908.
Favorite year. Wow.
Jack Norworth, a songwriter in New York, who was responsible for many well-known tunes, including "Shine On Harvest Moon,"
Shine
one of the
on,
standards,
shine on, harvest.
is riding the subway into Manhattan, and he sees a sign through the window that says "Baseball Today, Polo Grounds." Gives him an idea, and while he's on the subway, he pulls some paper out of his pocket and starts writing a song. He shows it to a friend of his named Albert von Tilzer, who was the musical man who set it to music. And it, of course, has become the anthem of baseball, and I always like to say it's the 4th or 5th national anthem of the United States, after the Star-Spangled
Right.
Banner, God Bless America, and America the Beautiful. He wrote one set of lyrics for it in 1908, which began with Katie Casey. It's about a girl named Katie Casey. And Katie Casey, some said, must have been the daughter of Casey at the Bat. That perhaps that's where he got the idea for Katie Casey. And the lyrics go, Katie Casey was baseball mad, had the fever and had it bad. Just to root for the hometown crew, every Sioux, S-O-U, Sioux, Katie Blue.
Okay.
Well, by 1927, 19 years later, the use of the term Sioux had evidently fallen out of American parlance.
Yeah.
Sioux was a tiny French coin, the equivalent of a cent. And so in 1927, Jack Norworth rewrote the opening lyrics, which we almost never hear because we always hear the chorus of Take Me Out. And of course, I'm talking about Take Me Out to the Ball Game. But if you see the movie entitled Take Me Out to the Ball Game, with Frank Sinatra and Gene Kelly, and Esther Williams is the owner of this ball club, you will hear them sing the entire tune. So what I like to do, as I do each year, is give you that opening lyric as it was rewritten in 1927. So it actually begins, Nellie Kelly loved baseball games, knew the players, knew all their names. You could see her there every day, shout hooray while they'd play. Her boyfriend by the name of Joe said, to Coney Isle, dear, let's go. Then Nellie started to fret and pout, and that's when I heard her shout, oh, take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd, buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the Cubbies. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Play ball.
And to close the story, Jack Norworth and Albert von Tilzer had something in common with our colleague here, Al Opitz. Neither of them had ever been to a baseball game.
Oh, cool.
It would be 20 years before Tilzer attended his first game in 1928, and Norworth, who wrote the lyrics, did not set foot in a ballpark until 1940, 32 years after he wrote the song that is the anthem of baseball, all based on a sign that he saw from the subway in Manhattan at the old Polo Grounds.
Well, the other thing is, don't forget Cracker Jack's Chicago product.
Yeah, South Cicero.
Yeah.
Went there many times.
Yeah, came out in
Where's it made?
1893.
Where's it made now? I know Nabisco just moved to Mexico. So,
Yeah, I think Cracker Jack is still out there, but
Oh no, in Chicago.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Oh, yeah,
76 and Cicero or
it's been
something.
been gone for years.
Oh,
Tootsie
maybe
Roll.
I'm thinking of
Tootsie Roll's
Tootsie
still
Roll.
there. Cracker Jack is
Cracker Jack came out in
'Cause we used to,
1893 with the World's Fair.
We used John and I used to tour. That was one of our big scouting trips to tour the Cracker Jack plant.
Anything to
And
get
I remember,
something free, I know.
And I remember one time one of the mothers that was with us, she worked there, and Cracker Jack also made marshmallows, and she worked the marshmallow line. So when we were touring the plant, she sat down and actually packed marshmallows. And I remember thinking, wow, we're with a real celebrity, a marshmallow packer at Cracker Jack.
Right, yeah.
Very impressive.
After Cracker Jack left, they got the motels and the hotels. They, for a while, called it Cracker Jack Plaza.
Oh,
They did that. Right.
okay.
Actually, it was Bedford Park right there.
And you wonder where the name Cracker Jack came from. Cracker and Jack. That seems
There was
Yeah, it's from the
that was from the
World's Fair, Columbian
somebody
Exposition.
said it's a real Cracker Jack or something like that.
Yeah.
It was sort of an off.
It was a jack,
Sailor.
a sailor, and I
It was
think
a
that
sailor.
some sailing term.
Well, a jack is the flag. One of the flags on the ship is called the jack. So that,
that's
could have been
the-
the origin of
like
the
the Union Jack?
Yeah,
that's the-
that's where the term Union Jack comes
Yeah.
from.
Maybe
And the little
maybe his name is Jack Cass.
No, but it came out. This is a real
Field
Cracker.
is the jack.
Somebody said this is a real Cracker Jack or something like that, and it's supposed to
yeah, and
Somebody
that
just gave out.
expression, yeah, Cracker Jack is
a sailor. I don't know how that.
the little sailor is a Chicagoan. His name is Muno is his last name, the Luxemburger, and he's buried up in what had been St. Henry's Cemetery. It's at Devon and Ridge. It's now part of Misericordia or so.
Well, next year we ought to get a hold of
'Cause they
Bob
were
Newhart's
Chicagoans.
classic routine on
Yeah.
the
But the
why 3 strikes, why 4, basically.
It's the Columbian Exposition.
Who's on
Yeah.
first?
well, the other question is
That's
who
right.
who was the father of the 7th inning stretch?
Grover, no.
heard the
William,
story.
William Howard Taft.
William Howard Taft.
Yeah.
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 The only president who could slam dunk.
He
If there was a slam dunk.
He was, I believe, the first president to throw out the first
Yeah,
pitch.
same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Same day this happened.
Why is it so dark?
It's been in my
Well, we're just
And
about.
I think in the whole history of the president throwing out the baseball, the only one that threw a perfect strike was President Bush.
Is that right?
He
was a
threw-
baseball man.
Yeah, he threw a perfect strike from
W
the mound.
or H?
Yeah, well, Ronald Reagan,
yeah.
he was a radio announcer. And he had a
he owned the ball team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
Ronald, I guess they power was lost at the time, and he kept on talking
The-
about the
the
baseball.
He kept
Absolute-
fouling it
the
off,
absolute
and another,
worst.
he kept vamping another
absolute
foul
worst-
ball, another
worst
foul
pitch.
ball, until the teletype came back and gave him.
Yeah, the old
Yeah, it was
teletype,
The
yeah.
worst
was
pitch
right.
was our present president. Did you ever see that? It's not showing much, but he threw the ball.
Bounced
If
away.
he had ever thrown a baseball before in his life, I would
No,
be shocked
he-
because
yeah.
the way if you ever see that, I mean, it comes nowhere near.
No,
to-
no,
to
wait a minute
home
now.
plate.
He said that he remembers many a great afternoon out at Old Kaminsky Field.
Oh, yeah.
You said that.
Yeah.
After he talked
And he
about
couldn't- and he couldn't name it.
Intercontinental Railroad, he mentioned too.
23rd and coming.
Saw an
Yeah.
80
Corpsman.
He saw a corpsman there.
Yeah, Corpsman.
Yeah, right.
On the train.
Oh, speaking of that, I thought we might get into. We got a few minutes? or-
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Particularly the Cubs have played in a number of ballparks, and they started on the south side. Actually, they were downtown.
West side. West side
Started
Beverly?
on the south side. They were at 25th in,
Maybe near
in
south.
the state. Anyway, then they went to the
Okay.
west side. They had a couple of parks of west side, and one of them was over by County Hospital.
Right.
And it was between Polk and Taylor from Wood to Walcott. And they had a fire alarm box there, and I got a copy of the box 1079. Anyway, across from Taylor Street was sort of a nut house.
Mental hospital.
Mental hospital, if you'll pardon the expression. And being in the summertime, they'd have the windows open and they'd yell out things, and that's where the expression that came from left field.
Yeah, heard that.
And then they supposedly left-handed pitchers were pitching on the south side of the mound, so they were called southpaws. Now, supposedly a retired, I don't know if he's even retired, police officer was responsible for a plaque being erected in the 800 block of South Wood, because that's where the Cubs dugout would have been. Like 825 South Wood or something.
Interesting.
No, west side of the street, 826. And it showed this was, and we've all seen a few pictures of, the 1906 World Series was, West Side Park.
Yeah.
The World Series.
And the Sox played at 39th and Wentworth. It was later on. It was cricket field or something.
Yeah.
Later on, the American Giants of the Negro Leagues played there.
Played there, yeah.
My dad remembers that. My uncle, people in the neighborhood used to go down and shag baseballs
Yeah.
with the guys or something.
I worked with a guy out at Englewood who was part of the McCuddy family, and they had the tavern across the street from Comiskey Park.
Supposedly, Babe Ruth sometimes occasionally ran across the street to grab a fast one before.
Well, but what was unique about that particular setup there was at Comiskey Park, you could leave the park and cross the street to McCuddy's, get a drink, and come back in if you showed him the ticket stub.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with an old timer, and he's telling me, he said he was with was a White Sox fan. He told me stories with Connie Mack and some of the pitchers, but he said, my brother and I, and he claimed, by the way, that he attended the first game at New Comiskey Park, in July of 10 or whatever.
2010. 1910.
1910, yeah. And he said, my brother and I used to come to the park early and shag fly balls and all that. And he said, and they had just put up the upper deck stands because the park didn't have them originally. And he said, I see my brother running up there to get a ball that had been hit up into the stand, practice ball. And he said he's being chased by a couple of ushers. And he said he runs over to the foul pole and he slides all the way down with his baseball. So
Got something to say, John?
Yeah, I was just going to say, he talking about throwing out the first baseball. In May of the year 2002, when I first started with WJJG, up until May of 2011, when Joe Gentile passed away, I took him every April or May to Wrigley Field to throw out the first baseball.
Oh, yeah? Wow.
And what he would do, he would take the graduating class from
St. Ignatius?
St. Ignatius to Wrigley Field and treat them to a day, and he would go out there and throw the first baseball out. And I would drive, Oscar and I would pick him up at the studios, drive him to Wrigley Field, and then he had people standing there waiting, and as soon as we pulled up, we got out of the car, they took the car and parked it for us, and we went into the grandstands, and he went, and I grew up right at Addison and Oakley, so I used to walk to Wrigley Field from there. Yeah. And then a few times when I did go to Wrigley Field on my own, hello, Engine 78, because the captain over there always, oh yeah, come on, John. He says, well, we'll have a place to park for you.
Who was the captain?
I don't remember, man. That's many years ago. I don't remember how I got
time for one more story. Just
go ahead.
Jim McKittrick. Did you know Jim McKittrick? He retired off of police department as a sergeant. For years, he started out as usher. He ran the ushering at, Comiskey and then New Park.
Okay, yeah.
And Helen McCuddy, the McCuddy family, told him the story that years before, Babe Ruth would make arrangements with her to pick out a local pastor here in one of the Catholic parishes and ask them if they want to play golf with them on the weekend one day. So they'd come up and they'd golf. Well, he would give her the money, I guess cash, to go get a brand new Cadillac. At Emil Denmark was on Pulaski, Emil Denmark dealership.
Sure.
And they'd go and they'd play and they'd come back, and Babe would leave the priest there with the title in his name.
Oh my!
No kidding. Yeah.
Every year he did that.
Yeah, I never heard that.
No, I tried it right from Jim, and he had no reason to make it up.
Yeah.
The other story that goes on is Elaine Tech's fight song, 8,000 Strong. They marched from Wrigley Field to the opening of Lane Tech. Mm-hmm. So they also had a lot to do with, the fight song of Lane Tech.
Yeah, and also one of the stories, Lou Gehrig, was playing for Commercial High School in New York, and they won a national championship, and they came to Wrigley Field, and he hit a Grand Slam home run out of the park. And he was in high school at the time.
Ouch.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, well, now the Lane Tech has a great presence in that area, so.
Yeah.
I'm not bragging too much, but
I had 7 children graduate from Lane Tech.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, 6 boys. One other story. I don't know if I should tell this or not.
We can hold it over for a few minutes, John.
Okay. Another 11th warder. I worked out in Englewood at 64th and Wentworth, and we had an assortment of people who were political. Anyway, his uncle had a tavern, but it wasn't. There weren't hamburgers. They weren't the hamburger. There was another section, 11th Ward. Anyway, he goes in there. The Yankees are in town, and so he's saying, "Well, I'm going to go to the game later on." So they said, "Well, the Yankee manager Joe McCarthy has got He's got a stomach ache, and etc., and he's not going to be at the game." So somebody goes, "He's upstairs." I guess he hit the bottle pretty good. So Joe McCarthy, the manager of the Yankees, so he was in the tavern. They just took him upstairs, let him sleep it off. And he says, I go to the game. And he said, Art Fletcher was the coach that took over. He said, the Sox won like 10-2 or something like that. The Yankees won 10-2. He said they didn't really need McCarthy, And
who did Joe McCarthy manage later? After the Yankees? Cubs.
Cubs.
You mentioned
Oh,
Cubs.
no, that was before.
Before? He was before?
Yeah, he won the 29 pennant with the Cubs.
Well, I stand corrected.
I
That's
stand
the first,
corrected.
First mistake all year.
It's the first mistake since 11:30. Oh.
Well, is everybody
First mistake since what
had a good time?
Yeah.
Are we almost ready to go? Let me just say one more thing.
Yes.
One more thing.
One more thing.
One more thing.
This is the old redhead himself.
Yeah.
Jack Ryan saying, remember, history is much more than a book that you keep on the shelf.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you one question.
Oh, my speech.
Woo!
Wait, Al.
Oh,
4 years
Go
ago.
ahead. We wish to thank Kevin of Jack FM, WRHS 89.7 FM, for broadcasting our shows over the Ridgewood Radio Network. Recordings of previous Meet the Chicago Historians programs are available for your listening pleasure via the internet at www.windycityhometown.com. On behalf of everyone associated with our Historians program, thank you for listening. And let's give a special thank you to our executive producer of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, John Sakanda. This is your announcer, Rich Lang, and thank you. So long until next time. Now, Al.
You have been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, April the 18th. This broadcast was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVito. Our audio engineer today is Mr. James Rohde, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is John Chicondo. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Take